Greetings, lore masters. Tonight our chronicle covers the deceivers, the sleepers, the innocent-looking bystanders who appear as though they'd struggle to lift a sweet roll, yet possess the raw power to fold an unsuspecting adventurer like a cheap iron helmet. We are walking the path of the hidden elites, the NPCs who mask their lethality behind wrinkles, beggars' rags, or pleasant smiles. In the harsh province of Skyrim, appearances are not just deceiving, they are often the last mistake a traveller ever makes. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Cold Harbour without some serious enchanted gear and a pocket full of cheese wheels, so it's best we learn who to avoid, or at least who to respect, from the safety of our beds. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment letting me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing the global map of our guild fill up. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The road out of Riverwood is usually the first true test for a fledgling adventurer. The cobblestones are cold, the air smells of pine needles and damp earth, and the distant roar of the White River provides a constant, lulling soundtrack to the journey. Most heroes, fresh from their escape at Helgen, are still wearing tattered rags or ill-fitting imperial leather. They are high on adrenaline, having just survived a dragon attack, and they feel invincible. This is the psychological trap of the early game. You feel like the main character, protected by plot armour and destiny. You stride through the forests of Falkreath Hold, swatting aside wolves and mudcrabs, believing that the world is levelled to your convenience. It is in this state of unearned confidence that you might stumble across a quaint, decaying structure known as Anise's cabin. It sits quietly across the river, just west of the Guardian Stones. To reach it, you likely have to swim the frigid currents or find a shallow crossing, your boots squelching in the mud as you approach the clearing. The scene is aggressively pastoral. It is almost too peaceful. There is a small garden patch where cabbages and potatoes grow in orderly rows, fighting the frost for survival. There is a tanning rack standing idle, and usually a chicken or two pecking aimlessly at the frozen ground. And there, tending to her chores with a stooped back and slow, deliberate movements, is an elderly woman. This is Anise. On the surface, she is the archetype of the harmless Skyrim grandmother. She wears simple, rough-spun clothes, the kind worn by miners and farmhands who have nothing to their names but the dirt under their fingernails. Her face is lined with the map of a hard life, her hair grey and pulled back. When you approach her, she doesn't draw a weapon. She doesn't shout threats or demand a toll. She speaks in a cracked, weary voice, often calling you dear. She plays the role of the hermit perfectly, just a lonely old woman living out her final years in the solitude of the woods, away from the civil war and the return of the dragons. "I'm just a poor old woman, dear. No need to trouble yourself with me," she says. It's a masterful piece of social engineering. Most players, trained by games to look for quest markers or loot, will glance at her, see no talk prompt of significance, and move on. Maybe you steal a cabbage if you're feeling mischievous. Maybe you use her tanning rack. She doesn't stop you. She's part of the scenery, a background texture of rural poverty. But the seasoned explorer, or perhaps just the nosy thief, notices the inconsistencies. Why does a poor old woman live alone in a shack that is dangerously close to a bandit-infested mine and an ancient barrow teeming with Draugr? How does she survive the wolves that prowl the riverbank every night? And then there is the matter of the locked door. Not the front door. That is usually open to the breeze. It's the small, innocent-looking trapdoor on the floorboards inside. The cabin interior is modest. A bed, a dresser, a few sacks of flour. It smells of dust and stale bread. But that trapdoor is locked. Now, if Anise were truly a simple peasant, she wouldn't have the skill or the gold to install a lock that requires a decent level of security picking to bypass. The curiosity itches at the back of your mind. You wait for her to go outside to tend to her garden, you crouch in the shadows, and you work the lock. Click. The door creaks open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. The air that drifts up is not the smell of potatoes or root cellars. It smells of ozone, dried herbs, and sulphur. You descend into the root cellar, and the illusion of the sweet grandmother shatters instantly. The space is small, but it is densely packed with the tools of high-level arcane craft. There is an alchemy lab bubbling away in the corner, stocked with ingredients that a simple farmer would have no business collecting. More damning is the arcane enchanter, a table glowing with the eerie, soul-trapping light of magic. These are expensive, rare stations. Finding one in a Jarl's palace is expected. Finding one beneath a rotting shack in the woods is a red flag the size of Red Mountain. On a nearby table you find a letter. It is a correspondence addressed to Anise from someone named Helgi. This isn't just a grocery list, it is a rejection of the mundane world. The letter speaks of a coven. It speaks of the old ways and how they must be kept secret from the prying eyes of the locals. The people here are simple, it reads. They fear what they don't understand. It confirms that Anise isn't just a witch. She is a recruiter, or perhaps a matriarch in hiding, trying to establish a foothold for a new coven right under the nose of Riverwood's guards. This is the core in-game fact that anchors the experience. Anise is a secret witch, and her cabin is a front for dark magical practice. Most players discover this early on, often by accident, turning a tutorial-level exploration into a fight for survival. Because once you read that letter, the script changes. The game knows you know. You climb back up the ladder, perhaps thinking you can confront her, maybe ask her to teach you a spell or two. But the poor old woman is gone. In her place stands an enemy whose health bar has turned a hostile red. "Fool! None may know my secret," she screams. The voice acting shifts. The tremor of age is replaced by the manic energy of a sorceress. And this is where the sleeper build concept punches you in the face. Anise doesn't pull out an iron dagger and flail at you like a common bandit. She raises her hands and the air ignites. Anise is a mage, and not just a novice spraying a bit of frost. Depending on your level and difficulty settings, she can unleash fireballs, ice spikes, and fast healing. For a low-level player who just walked out of Helgen wearing a stormcloak cuirass and holding a steel sword, Anise is a nightmare. Magic in Skyrim ignores armor rating. Your shield does nothing against the flames she hurls. She kites you around her garden, blasting you with destruction magic while you frantically eat raw potatoes to stay alive. It is a humbling moment. The game teaches you a brutal lesson. Do not judge a threat by its character model. The elderly in Skyrim are not to be trifled with. There is an obscure lore tidbit buried in the game files and community analysis regarding her connections. The name Helgi in her letter has caused no end of confusion and speculation. Some connect it to the ghost child Helgi in Morthal, though the timeline doesn't fit. Others point to a bandit chief named Helgi. But the most compelling connection comes from the dialogue and the nature of her magic. Fans have long debated whether Anise is connected to the Hagravens. In the quest, A Night to Remember, the player encounters a Hagraven named Moira, who claims a romantic entanglement with the Dragonborn. Moira speaks of a sister. While not explicitly named as Anise, the proximity of their magical styles and the nature of covens in Skyrim suggests Anise might be on the biological path to becoming a Hagraven herself, trading her humanity for power, feather by feather. She's in the larval stage of monstrosity, still wearing the human suit to blend in. The fight with Anise is often short, brutal and chaotic. Her body, once looted, yields little more than robes and perhaps a dagger, a stark contrast to the magical firepower she just unleashed. But the true reward is the cabin itself, because Anise's cabin has a unique property that has made it a legendary location among the community, effectively a massive exploit disguised as scenery. The storage containers in her cellar, specifically the sacks and the apothecary's satchel, are non-respawning. This means that after you dispatch the witch, you can move in. You can store your dragon bones, your unique weapons, and your heavy armor in her basement, and the game will not delete them when the cell resets. For a homeless dragonborn in the early game, Anise's death provides the best starter home in the province. It has crafting stations, a bed, once you get over the guilt of sleeping in a dead woman's sheets, and safe storage. It's a grim irony. Anise sought to create a secret lair to practice her dark arts away from society. In doing so, she built the perfect bachelor pad for the hero who murders her. There is a lingering sense of unease, however, when you stay there. The cabin remains listed as Anise's cabin on your map. It never becomes yours. You're a squatter in a dead witch's house. At night, when the wind howls through the gaps in the wood and the river rushes by, you can almost hear the crackle of her fire spells. Sometimes, hired thugs will appear days later, with a contract signed by Anise before she died, or perhaps signed by her sister from beyond the grave. It's a mechanic of the game's crime system, sure, but narratively it feels like a ghost reaching out for revenge. The fan community loves Anise because she represents that first shattering of trust. We walk into Riverwood expecting high fantasy tropes, noble heroes, evil dragons, and helpless peasants. Anise teaches us that the peasants might be the ones we should fear. She's a sleeper build in the truest sense, low stats in appearance, maxed stats in deception. She's a reminder that in the Elder Scrolls universe, power is not always clad in Daedric armour. Sometimes it wears an apron and plants turnips. As we leave the smoking remains of the cabin behind, stepping back onto the road towards Falkreath, we are a little wiser, a little more paranoid. We check the hands of the next traveller we meet. Are they callous from a plough or stained with alchemy reagents? The road winds on, shadows lengthening as the sun dips below the mountains, and we realise that Anise was just the gatekeeper to a world full of hidden threats. Speaking of roads and unsuspecting threats, our journey takes us further into the wilds where another figure waits. This one doesn't hide behind the guise of a frail woman, but rather behind the guise of a tragedy. You might hear him before you see him, a low rumbling voice speaking to the empty air, or perhaps to the gods themselves. He stands by the roadside, usually near a bridge or a lonely intersection, clad in armour, yes, but surrounded by the stench of death. If you survive the encounter with Anise, you might feel a renewed sense of caution, but the roads of Skyrim have a way of lulling you back into complacency with their sheer beauty. The moons, Massa and Secunda, rise high above the pines, casting a pale silver light over the landscape. You're travelling, perhaps towards the Reach or down into the Rift, when you see a solitary figure standing by the verge. It is an orc, an Orsimer. He isn't attacking you, he isn't blocking the road like a bandit toll collector. He is just waiting, and looking at two saber cats lying dead at his feet. This is the old orc. A random encounter that has become iconic, not for its complexity, but for its profound melancholy and hidden danger. At first glance, he looks like any other warrior, perhaps a bit grizzled. His armour is worn, a mix of heavy plates that have seen better decades. His face is scarred, his tusks yellowed with age. He stands with a slump to his shoulders that speaks of an exhaustion deeper than physical fatigue. When you approach him, he doesn't shout a battle cry. He speaks with a calm, resigned dignity. "I am waiting for a good death," he tells you. This is the core in-game fact that defines the interaction. In Orcish culture, governed by the Code of Malakath, there is no honour in dying of old age. To wither away in a bed, unable to lift a sword or defend the stronghold, is a shame worse than defeat. The greatest gift an orc can receive is a glorious death in combat against a superior foe while they are still strong. This orc has lived too long. He has outlived his enemies. He has outlived his friends. He has wandered the province seeking a challenge, and everything he fights, trolls, bears, dragons, dies by his hand. He's suffering from success. He's too strong to die, and it is a curse. "I am old," he says. "A good death is hard to find." The tragedy is palpable. He asks you, the player, to do him this final honour, to fight him, to kill him. Now, many players, especially those role-playing as noble heroes, might hesitate. Why kill an old man who has done you no wrong? You can try to talk him out of it, but his resolve is iron. He doesn't want pity, he wants a blade in the gut. So, you agree. You draw your weapon, perhaps thinking this will be a quick mercy killing, a cinematic end for a weary traveller. You are wrong. The moment the dialogue ends and combat begins, the sleeper build reality kicks in. The old orc is not a pushover, he is a level-scaled wrecking ball. Depending on when you meet him, he can spawn with high-level gear, sometimes orcish, sometimes ebony. But it's his stats that catch you off guard. He hits like a truck. He has the racial ability Berserker Rage, which allows him to take half damage and deal double damage for a short period. If he triggers this, and you are standing in front of him trading blows, you will be decimated. I have seen countless Let's Play videos where a confident player accepts the challenge, only to be one-shotted by a power attack from this sad old man. He moves with a ferocity that belies his dialogue. He blocks, he bashes, he relentlessly closes the distance. He fights exactly like what he is, a veteran of 1,000 wars who has survived everything the world could throw at him. You're not fighting a generic NPC. You're fighting a living legend who is desperate enough to use every ounce of his skill to force you to kill him. There is a fascinating obscure lore tidbit regarding the specific mechanics of this encounter. While the old orc appears random, his spawn points are often near locations associated with sabre cats. Those two dead cats at his feet aren't just props. They are a subtle storytelling device indicating he just soloed two of the most dangerous early game predators in Skyrim without breaking a sweat. Furthermore, digging into the game data reveals that the old orc shares voice lines and behavioural scripts with Umbra, a character from Oblivion and Morrowind. Umbra was a warrior possessed by a soul-devouring sword, seeking death in combat. While the old orc doesn't wield the Umbra sword, the thematic DNA is identical. He is a spiritual successor to that cursed archetype, the warrior who cannot stop killing even when they want to stop living. The community debate around the old orc is less about his strength and more about the morality of the encounter. Is it murder, or is it assisted suicide, or is it a religious sacrament? Fans have argued for years about the good alignment choice here. If you walk away, you leave him to his misery, denying him entrance to the ash pit, the orcish afterlife. If you kill him, you take a life that wasn't threatening you. It is a grey area that Skyrim excels at, but strictly from a sleeper build perspective, he is a trap. He lures you in with pity and then tests your build integrity. He is a gear check. If your armour rating isn't up to scratch, or your health pool is too low, the old orc will grant you a good death instead. And there is a dark humour in that. If you lose to him, he doesn't celebrate. He probably just sighs, sheathes his weapon, and goes back to waiting. You were just another disappointment, another weakling who couldn't send him home. If you do manage to defeat him, the fight usually ends with a whisper of gratitude. "Thank you," he might gasp as he falls. Looting his body feels disrespectful, yet many of us do it anyway. He often carries nothing of value, just his armour and weapon. No gold, no gems. He had no need for material wealth. He was rich in pain. Leaving his body by the roadside, perhaps dragging it out of the path of carts as a final sign of respect, you continue your journey. The encounter leaves a mark. It reminds you that in this harsh land, survival isn't the only goal. Sometimes, the goal is simply to end well. As the old orc fades into the rearview mirror of your adventure, the nature of our sleepers shifts. We move from the tragic strength of the elderly to something far more sinister. We move from the open roads to the shadowed sanctuaries of the assassins. We move from a warrior who looks old but acts young, to a predator who looks young but is ancient beyond reckoning. Deep in the pine forests of Falkreath, behind a door that asks, "What is the music of life?" lies the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary. It is a home for outcasts, murderers, and psychopaths. Among them is a figure who seems entirely out of place. She sits at a stone table, perhaps mixing potions or sharpening a dagger, her legs swinging because they don't quite reach the floor. She wears the clothes of a child, has the face of a child, and the voice of a child. This is Babette, and she is perhaps the most terrifying entity in the entire guild. Babette appears to be a Nord girl, roughly 10 years old. She has the rosy cheeks and innocent eyes that trigger an instinctive protective response in most humans. In a sanctuary filled with werewolves, Argonians, and scarred mages, she looks like a victim, or perhaps a mascot. But Babette is a vampire. And not just any vampire, she's 300 years old. This is the core in-game fact that defines her character. She was bitten at the age of 10, freezing her physical form forever in childhood, while her mind continued to mature, rot, and sharpen over 3 centuries. She is the ultimate sleeper build because her camouflage is biological and perfect. No guard suspects a little girl of being a contract killer, no target raises their shield when a crying child approaches them in a dark alley. "I may look like a child, but I've been killing for longer than you've been alive," she tells the Dragonborn with a chillingly casual tone. She is the master trainer for alchemy in the game, possessing knowledge of poisons that surpasses almost everyone else in Skyrim. While other assassins have to rely on stealth and shadows, Babette relies on societal norms. She weaponizes empathy. In her dialogue, she recounts a contract she fulfilled in a city. She tells the story of how she approached a target pretending to be a lost weeping child. The man, moved by pity, bent down to help her, and in that moment of vulnerability she slit his throat. Or, as she sometimes details with gleeful malice, she bit him. It is a predatory strategy that is impossible to defend against because it exploits the fundamental goodness of her victims. She's a monster in a little girl's dress, The obscure lore tidbit regarding Babette links her to the wider vampire lore of the Elder Scrolls. In the Oblivion expansion, The Vile Lair, players could purchase the services of a dark minion who would fetch supplies. There is a theory, supported by her age and the timeline, that Babette might have been active in Cyrodiil during the Oblivion crisis, perhaps even crossing paths with the hero of Kvatch's operations, though she would have been keeping a low profile. Furthermore, her existence challenges the rules of vampirism presented in other media. In many vampire mythologies, child vampires are forbidden or destroyed because they cannot control their hunger. Babette turns this on its head. She is the most controlled. She treats her condition not as a curse, but as a professional asset. She loves being a vampire. She loves the eternal youth, even if it means she can never be taken seriously as a woman, only as a killer. Community debate often circles around her actual power level in a fight. Because she's a child model, the game engine of Skyrim, without mods, actually marks her as essential and unkillable in a unique way. Child NPCs cannot be harmed by the player. This is a failsafe to prevent players from going on child-killing sprees. However, lore-wise, fans debate who is the stronger vampire, Babette or Lord Harkon. Harkon has the vampire lord form, raw brute power, and thousands of years of experience. Babette has the ultimate stealth. In a straight fight, Harkon wins, but in an assassination contract, Babette could walk right up to Harkon's throne, offer him a poisoned flower, and end him before he realised the threat. She represents soft power, pushed to its absolute lethal extreme. There is a moment during the Dark Brotherhood questline when the Sanctuary is attacked by the Penitus Oculatus, where we see Babette's true nature shine. While other physically stronger assassins are cut down, Babette survives. She hides, she escapes. Her small size and her intellect allow her to slip through cracks that trapped the others. She's the cockroach of the Brotherhood, impossible to stomp out. Her presence in the game is a constant reminder of the unseen danger. When you walk through the cities of Skyrim, looking at the children playing tag in the streets, a small part of you wonders, are they all what they seem? Or is there another Babette among them, watching, waiting and hungry? She is the sleeper build that you can never truly fight, only work alongside, and frankly, having a 300-year-old vampire assassin who looks like she should be in school as your ally is far better than having her as your enemy. She's the innocence that bites, but if Babette hides in the shadows of an illegal guild, our next subject hides in plain sight, in the highest court of the land. She stands at the right hand of power, whispering into the ear of the High Queen, or Jarl, bathed in the light of Solitude's blue palace. She is elegant, she is snide, and she is arguably one of the most dangerous political figures in the province. We leave the damp, blood-soaked sanctuary of the Dark Brotherhood and travel north to the gleaming stone arches of Solitude. This is the capital of Skyrim, a city of culture, commerce and political intrigue. In the Blue Palace, the seat of the High King, or currently the widowed Jarl Elisif, courtiers jostle for influence. They wear fine silks, they speak in hushed tones, and they play the game of thrones. Among them stands a woman who seems to be just another fixture of the court bureaucracy, the court wizard, Sibyl Stentor. At first glance, Sibyl is merely annoying. She has that classic high elf arrogance, even though she's technically a Breton. She speaks to the Dragonborn with a dripping condescension, treating you like a dull child who just wandered into a library. "Oh, you're the Dragonborn? How quaint," her tone seems to imply. She assigns you menial tasks, complains about the stupidity of the Jarls, and generally acts like a tenured professor who hates her students. But look closer. Look at her eyes. Look at the way she never seems to sleep. Sibyl Stentor is a vampire. This is the core in-game fact, but unlike Babette, who admits it freely, Sibyl keeps it an open secret. She doesn't burn in the sun, likely due to magical protections or high feeding, but she has the telltale glowing eyes, especially noticeable with the Dawnguard DLC installed. She has access to the highest levels of destruction and illusion magic, but the most chilling confirmation comes from her dialogue regarding the High Kings. She mentions serving the court for many years. Many years. She talks about raising Jarl Elisif's late husband, High King Torrig, and even his father. She has been the court wizard for generations, appearing youthful and unchanged while the kings she serves grow old and die. She's a tick on the neck of the monarchy. Sybille is a sleeper build of a different variety. She isn't hiding her strength so much as she's hiding the source of her longevity. She is a political sleeper. She has positioned herself in the one place where she is untouchable, the Jarl's side. Who would dare accuse the court wizard of vampirism? To do so would be treason. She uses the law as her shield. Furthermore, she uses the Blue Palace's dungeon as her personal pantry. There is a quest where you can ask her about the vampire threat in Pine Moon Cave. She's surprisingly eager to have you wipe them out, not because she hates vampires, but because they are competition, or perhaps they are rogue elements that threaten to expose the civilized vampires like herself. She represents the Volu-style vampire, those who integrate into society rather than hiding in caves. The obscure lore tidbit here is a disturbing detail found in the game files and subtle environmental storytelling. If you sneak into her private quarters in the Blue Palace, you won't find coffins or blood altars. She's too smart for that. But you might notice her sleeping patterns. She rarely sleeps. She's almost always awake, wandering the halls. But the real kicker is the rumour mill. Meleran, her successor if she dies, hints that Sybille has a special arrangement with the jailers. Prisoners in the Solitude dungeon have a habit of disappearing or dying of natural causes. Sybille feeds on the criminals of Solitude. She's a sanctioned predator, cleaning up the dregs of society to sustain her own immortality. It is a dark symbiosis. The city provides her with food, prisoners, and she provides the city with magical defense. The community debate around Sybille Stentor focuses on just how much influence she actually has. Is she effectively ruling Solitude? Jarl Elisif is young, inexperienced, and grieving. She relies heavily on her advisors. Sybille is the oldest, the smartest, and the most ruthless person in that room. Many fans theorize that Sybille Stentor is the true power behind the throne in Solitude, manipulating policies to ensure her safety and comfort. Some even speculate she might have had a hand in the death of High King Torrig, not by shouting him apart like Ulfric, but by orchestrating the political climate that led to the duel. She's a player of the long game. If you decide to fight her, perhaps you attack the Blue Palace in a fit of rage, you quickly realize she's not just a bureaucrat. Sybille is a high-level mage. She unleashes chain lightning and thunderbolts that can disintegrate a warrior before they reach the throne. She summons Atronax. She turns invisible. She fights with the terrifying efficiency of someone who has had lifetimes to master the arcane arts. She's a boss fight disguised as a quest giver. Sybille teaches us that in Skyrim, the monsters aren't always in the dungeons. Sometimes they own the dungeons. Sometimes they are the ones giving you the quest to kill the monsters. She is the velvet-gloved hand of death, a reminder that power in Skyrim is often ancient, bloodthirsty, and very, very polite. Leaving the political snake pit of Solitude, we travel east into the frozen wastes of Winterhold. Here the College of Winterhold stands as a beacon of magical learning, perched precariously on a collapsing cliff. The students here are a mixed bag: ambitious Nords, studious elves, and one particularly confident Khajiit. This is J'zargo, and if you think he is just comic relief, you are making a fatal calculation error. J'zargo is an apprentice just like you. He greets you with a smooth, purring arrogance. J'zargo is sure this will be easy, he says. He speaks in the third person. He is obsessed with mastering destruction magic and becoming the best mage in the college. He gives you a quest to test his flame cloak scrolls, which notoriously explode and hurt you. He seems like a novice who's in over his head, a lovable screw-up with an ego problem. But J'zargo has a secret. He is, mechanically speaking, potentially the strongest follower in the entire game. This brings us to the core in-game fact. J'zargo has no level cap. Most followers in Skyrim stop leveling with the player at level 30, 40 or 50. Lydia, for example, caps at 50. Once you pass level 50, Lydia stops getting stronger. Her health and skills plateau. But J'zargo keeps going. If you reach level 81, the original max level, J'zargo is level 81. If you use the legendary skill system to push your character to level 252, J'zargo hits level 252. He is the only follower in the base game who scales indefinitely with the Dragonborn. This means that in the ultra-late game, when you're fighting legendary dragons and ebony warriors, J'zargo is the only companion who can naturally tank the hits. His health pool becomes astronomical, his magicka reserves become bottomless. While other followers are kneeling on the ground gasping for mercy, J'zargo is still standing, dual-casting thunderbolts and shouting insults. He is the ultimate sleeper build because the game presents him as an incompetent student. His scrolls fail. He admits he is struggling with wards. He seems like a joke. But underneath that furry exterior is a mathematical anomaly that makes him a god among NPCs. The obscure lore tidbit involves his dialogue and his origins. J'zargo mentions he comes from a long line of mages, but he left elsewhere because there was too much competition. This implies that in his homeland he wasn't considered special. It paints a terrifying picture of Khajiit mage society if J'zargo, the infinite scaling powerhouse, was considered average back home. Additionally, cut content suggests there was a deeper rivalry intended between him and the Thalmor advisor Ancano. J'zargo's limitless potential might have been intended as a narrative foil to the Thalmor's rigid control. He is chaotic, unbounded potential. The community debate, however, centers on his AI. While J'zargo has infinite stats, his combat AI is questionable. He prefers to use low-level spells like Sparks even when he has the Magicka for Thunderbolt. He sometimes engages in fistfights with dragons. Fans argue endlessly, is J'zargo actually a genius holding back, or is he a demigod with the brain of a house cat? Many players use mods solely to fix his AI, so he uses the high-level spells his stats deserve. But even with his vanilla Sparks spam, his sheer durability makes him a walking tank. There is something endearing about J'zargo. He wants so badly to be great, not realizing that the universe, the game code, has already ordained him as the greatest. He is the chosen one of the followers, hiding behind a mask of insecurity and bravado. He asks you for help, not knowing he could probably clear the dungeon by himself if he just focused. Travelling with J'zargo feels like babysitting a nuclear weapon. You know the power is there, you just hope he points it in the right direction. He represents the hidden potential in all of us, or at least, the hidden potential in our game files. From the infinite scaling of a Khajiit wizard, we move to a different kind of resistance. We leave the college and head west, into the Reach, to the dwarven ruin of Thardams. Here, amidst the green vomit of the afflicted, waits a boss who possesses a defensive ability so broken it feels like a developer oversight. This is Auchendor. He is a wood elf, a bosmer. He is the overseer of the afflicted, a cult of Periite worshippers who are infected with a plague that makes them vomit poison. Gross, yes. But Auchendor himself is clean, composed, and terrifyingly silent. He doesn't monologue. He doesn't explain his master plan. He just teleports. The core in-game fact about Auchendor is his spell absorption. Auchendor has a natural 100% resistance to magic. Or rather, he is immune to almost all magical effects. Fire, frost, shock. It all washes over him like water off a duck's back. For a pure mage player, Auchendor is the hardest boss in the game. You can cast your most powerful master-level destruction spells, the ones that disintegrate dragons, and Auchendor's health bar won't move a pixel. He is the ultimate anti-mage sleeper. He looks like just another bandit wizard or cult leader. He wears standard mage robes, but mechanically, he is a brick wall. The reason for this lies in his racial and class abilities stacking in a weird way. As a bosmer, he has some resistances, but his unique teleportation script and his status as Periite's champion give him this lore-bending immunity. He blinks around the battlefield, appearing behind you, blasting you with afflicted vomit, a unique shout-like attack, and ice storms, while you panic because your entire build has been rendered useless. The obscure lore tidbit connects him to the Daedric Prince Periite. Periite is often considered the weakest prince, the taskmaster who deals with order and pestilence. But Auchendor's power suggests that Periite's blessing is actually one of the most potent. Periite is about natural order and endurance. By making his champion immune to magic, Periite is essentially saying, your arcane tampering cannot stop the natural decay of the world. Auchendor is a walking antibiotic-resistant bacteria. He adapts, he endures. Community debates often flare up around how to kill him if you are a pure mage. Do you conjure Atronax to punch him? Yes, physical damage works. Do you use a bound bow? Do you just run away? Auchendor forces players to break character. He forces the archmage to pick up a rusty axe and swing it like a barbarian. He humbles you. His silence is also a point of contention. Is he mute? Is he just focused? Or has the affliction rotted his vocal cords? He is a cipher, a blank face of death that teleports through the dwarven steam, immune to your shouts and your spells. Orchendor is a reminder that in Skyrim, specialization is a weakness. If you rely too much on one form of power, the game will eventually throw an Orchendor at you to prove you wrong. He is the sleeper build that wakes you up to your own vulnerability. As we leave the poisonous depths of Bethardums, gasping for fresh air, we realise that the most dangerous NPCs aren't always the ones with the biggest swords. Sometimes they are the ones who simply refuse to die. We emerge from the toxic fumes of Thardums, lungs burning and armour likely needing a good scrub, and find ourselves craving the misty, eerie calm of the swamps. Our journey takes us to Morthal, a town that feels like it's slowly sinking into the marsh. It's a place of fog, fear, and secrets. The locals are suspicious, the Jarl is prone to visions, and the air hangs heavy with the threat of vampires. But in this backwater town there is a man who treats the laws of reality like mere suggestions, Falion. He lives on the edge of the water, in a house that always seems damp. He is a Redguard wizard, a rarity in these parts, and the townsfolk give him a wide berth. They whisper that he eats hearts, that he summons demons, that he is the source of the town's nightmares. When you speak to him, he is dismissive, bordering on rude. "Do not disturb me while I'm working," he snaps, though he often just stands by the water staring into the nothingness. He looks like a standard hedge wizard, robes, a hood, a bad attitude. But Falion is perhaps the most accomplished conjurer in the Fourth Era, a man who makes the College of Winterhold look like a kindergarten. The core in-game fact that cements his legend is his ability to cure vampirism. He is the only person in Skyrim who knows the ritual. To cure the player, he demands a black soul gem. He takes you to a summoning circle in the middle of the swamp at dawn. There he speaks to the forces of oblivion directly. He doesn't pray, he commands. He bargains with the Daedra to trade a soul for a soul, cleansing the vampiric bloodline from your veins. This isn't simple restoration magic. This is metaphysical surgery performed on the fabric of a Daedric curse. "I have met Daedra and Dwemer and everything in between," he tells you casually, and he isn't bragging. Falion is a sleeper build because he possesses knowledge that has been lost to almost everyone else. He is an ex-teacher from the College of Winterhold who left because he hated the bureaucracy and the limitations they placed on his research. He found them too safe, too timid. So he came to Morthal, where no one would bother him, to push the boundaries of conjuration. The obscure lore tidbit here is found in his dialogue and the unfinished content surrounding him. Falion mentions that he has travelled the planes of oblivion, not read about them, travelled them, plural. He speaks of walking in realms that would shatter a mortal mind. He implies he has met Dwemer, a race that disappeared thousands of years ago. This suggests Falion has either time-travelled or visited a plane where the Dwemer still exist, perhaps the outer realms of Aetherius or a pocket realm of oblivion. The implication is staggering. This guy in a swamp shack has potentially solved the greatest mystery in Elder Scrolls lore, the disappearance of the dwarves, and he just doesn't care enough to publish a paper on it. He also mentions having a secret apprentice, Agni. Young girl he is training. The townsfolk think he is sacrificing her. In reality, he is teaching her to be a god-tier mage. He is protective, almost fatherly in a gruff way. He is raising the next generation of unaligned power. The community debate around Falion is about his alignment. Is he good? He cures you. He protects Agni. Or is he dangerous? He deals in black souls, human souls. To cure you, someone else must die and be trapped in a gem. He is a utilitarian. He is a master of the darker arts who uses them for, well, mostly for his own curiosity. But he represents a level of power that the Dragonborn can only aspire to. We shout at dragons. Falion strolls through hell dimensions on his lunch break. If you attack him, Falion doesn't panic. He unleashes high-level shock magic and summons Storm Atranax. He fights with the precision of a man who has dueled Dremora Lords and won. He is a reminder that the most powerful wizards often live in the middle of nowhere because they don't need the approval of a college to bend reality. Leaving the swamp wizard to his interdimensional tourism, we hit the road again. We travel the long, winding highways of the Pale, perhaps heading towards Dawnstar. The snow is falling, the wind is howling, and ahead we see a bard, Tulsgar, the Wanderer. He is a random encounter, a man in studded armour with a lute strapped to his back. He walks the roads alone. When you approach him, he is jovial. He offers to sing you a song for a few coins. He tells stories of his travels. He seems like flavour text. a bit of world building to make the roads feel alive. A wandering minstrel, harmless and charming. Do not pick a fight with the bard. The core in-game fact is that Tolsgar is a high-level spellsword. If you attack him, or if a bandit attacks him, he doesn't just pull out a dagger and cower. He unleashes a barrage of destruction magic that scales surprisingly high. He uses oak flesh or stone flesh to boost his armor rating, then switches to dual casting flames or frost. He is aggressive. He is tactical. He is a sleeper build because the game codes him as a generic bard, a class usually reserved for the wimps in taverns who exist to get beaten up in bar brawls. But Tolsgar is built different. He is essentially a high-level adventurer who got bored and decided to learn music. The obscure lore tidbit is that Tolsgar might be a reference to the Bard class from earlier Elder Scrolls games, which was a viable hybrid class combining combat, magic, and stealth, and speechcraft. In Skyrim, the Bard faction is non-combat focused, you just fetch instruments. Tolsgar is a throwback to the days when bards were battle mages who sang songs of their own victories. He is the only NPC who truly embodies the battle bard archetype in the vanilla game. The community has a love-hate relationship with him. He often interrupts serious moments. You might be stalking a dragon, and suddenly Tolsgar walks by, humming a tune. But if a dragon does attack, Tolsgar will join the fight, and he will pull his weight. There are videos of Tolsgar finishing off low-level dragons with a well-placed lightning bolt. He is the roadside vigilante who acts like a busker. There is a theory that Tolsgar is actually a retired member of the Blades, or a Apprentice Oculatus agent in deep cover, using the wandering bard persona to patrol the roads and keep tabs on the civil war. His gear is too good, his spells too practiced for a simple musician. He's a spy who hides behind a song, so next time you see him, toss him a coin, not for the song, but as protection money. We leave the musical destruction of Tolsgar and head south, back to the pine forests, returning to the Dark Brotherhood. We've met Babette, the child vampire, but there is another member of the family who hides his lethality behind a veneer of grumpiness and senility. Festus Crex. He is the elderly mage of the sanctuary. He wears the Brotherhood robes, but he looks like a cranky grandfather who just wants his soup. He's constantly complaining. He complains about the temperature, the noise, the lack of respect. He longs for the good old days of the Brotherhood. To the new initiate you, he seems like a washed-up has-been, a mage who is past his prime and just hanging around to critique your technique. I am a wizard, an assassin, I kill people with magic, is that so hard to understand, he shouts. The core in-game fact is that Festus is a master of the destruction school, specifically the fire branch. In his prime, he was a prodigy. He tells a story of a contract he fulfilled where he turned a target inside out with a spell. He didn't use poison. He didn't use a dagger. He used raw, explosive magical force. He represents the loud assassin, the one who doesn't care about being seen, as long as there are no witnesses left alive to report it. Festus is a sleeper build because his frailty is a lie. Mechanically, he is a powerhouse of fire damage. During the Destroy the Dark Brotherhood quest, if you choose that path, Festus is often the hardest member to kill. He spams fireballs that have a massive splash damage radius. In the confined spaces of the sanctuary, he turns the room into an oven. He doesn't need to aim, he just needs to fill the air with flame. The obscure lore tidbit comes from his backstory. He mentions he used to teach at the College of Winterhold but was fired. Why? Not for incompetence, but for being too dangerous. He wrote a book on destruction magic that was banned because the spells were too volatile. He is a magical anarchist. He believes magic should be dangerous. He joined the Brotherhood not out of religious devotion to Sithis, but because it was the only place that let him blow people up legally, or at least professionally. The fan community loves Festus for his grumpy uncle energy, but there is a genuine sadness to his arc. In the Brotherhood questline, when the sanctuary is attacked, you find Festus outside. He has been pinned to a tree by dozens of arrows. It looks like a defeat. But look at the ground around him. It is scorched. There are bodies of Penitus Oculatus agents everywhere. Festus didn't go down easy. He went down fighting an entire platoon of elite soldiers. He went out exactly as he lived. Loud, fiery, and taking as many people with him as possible. He is the sleeper who reminds us that old in the magical world just means more time to learn the dangerous stuff. He is the glass cannon that eventually shattered. but not before shredding the enemy. From the chaotic fire of an assassin, we ascend to the freezing heights of the world. We climb the 7,000 steps to High Hrothgar, seeking wisdom from the Greybeards. These monks are pacifists. They sit in silence, meditating on the voice. They seem frail, draped in grey robes, their beards sweeping the floor. But the leader, Master Arngeir, is a walking nuclear deterrent. We leave the blood-stained history of the Dark Brotherhood and ascend. We climb the 7,000 steps past the trolls and the pilgrims until the air becomes thin and the world below fades into a white haze. We stand before the doors of High Hrothgar, the monastery of the Greybeards. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy with silence and incense. The monks who dwell here are the masters of the Way of the Voice, pacifists who have sworn to use their power only for the worship of Kine. They look like frail ancient men stumbling under the weight of their own robes. But do not mistake pacifism for weakness. Master Arngeir, the spokesman of the Greybeards, is a weapon of mass destruction wrapped in a monk's habit. Arngeir is the only Greybeard who can speak freely to the Dragonborn. The others, Bori, Einarth and Wulfgar, are so powerful that even a whisper from them would rumble the mountain and potentially kill a normal mortal. Arngeir acts as the filter, the safety valve. He seems like a gentle teacher, guiding you through the philosophy of the Thu'um. He lectures you on restraint. He scolds the blades for their violence. He preaches balance. But check his stats. This is the core in-game fact. Master Arngeir is, level for level, the most powerful humanoid NPC in the base game. He is level 150. Let that sink in. The Ebony Warrior, the final boss challenger, is level 80. Karstag, the Ghost Giant King, is level 90. Arngeir is nearly double that. He has more health than a legendary dragon. He has infinite shout cooldowns. He knows every shout in the game, mostly. If you were to use console commands to turn off his essential status and fight him, or if you attack the Greybeards and trigger their hostility, you are in for a humiliating defeat. Arngeir doesn't fight like a normal NPC. He doesn't use weapons. He uses the voice. He will freeze you in a block of ice with ice form. He will blast you off the mountain with unrelenting force. He will breathe fire. He will disarm you. He effectively has access to the game's developer console commands, but in universe. He is a sleeper build because he chooses not to fight. He holds back an apocalypse of sound every time he opens his mouth to say, hello. The obscure lore tidbit regarding Arngeir lies in the hierarchy of the Greybeards. He's actually the lowest ranking member in terms of raw voice mastery, which is why he can speak safely. The others are stronger in the volatility of their Thu'um, but Arngeir is the strongest in terms of control and level scaling. He is the bridge between the mortal and the divine. Furthermore, there is a lingering fan theory that Arngeir is not just a monk, but a former Dragonborn or a potential one who refused the call. Parthenax, the leader of the Order, trusts him implicitly. Arngeir's bitterness towards the Blades suggests a deep personal history with political manipulation. He knows what happens when the voice is weaponized for war, and he hates it. The community debate around Arngeir is fascinating. Many players hate him for his arrogance and his refusal to help fight Alduin directly. They call him a coward. But the sleeper build perspective flips this. He isn't a coward. He's a man sitting on a stockpile of nuclear weapons who refuses to push the button. He knows that if the Greybeards went to war, they wouldn't just win. They would break the world. The mountains would shatter. The sky would burn. His restraint is the ultimate flex. There is a terrifying glitch exploit that sometimes occurs where the Greybeards turn hostile. If this happens, they will chain ragdoll the player. You won't even touch the ground. You will bounce from wall to wall, frozen, burned and shouted at until you die. It is a glimpse into the raw power that protects High Hrothgar. They don't need guards. They don't need walls. They just need to clear their throats. We descend from the throat of the world, humbled by the old men on the mountain, and travel to a place even more remote. We go underground, into the dark, forgotten valleys beneath the earth. The Dawnguard DLC introduced us to the Forgotten Vale, a hidden sanctuary of the Snow Elves. Here, amidst the Falmer and the Shorus, stands a solitary figure, Knight-Paladin Gelibor. He is the last of his kind, a pristine, uncorrupted snow elf. He stands guard over the Chantry of Oriel. At first he seems like a tragic relic. He is alone. His people are gone, twisted into the blind monsters that infest the caves. He looks weary, a custodian of a dead religion. He asks for your help to kill his own brother, Vertha, who has been corrupted. He seems like a quest giver who needs the big, strong dragonborn to do the dirty work. But Gelebor is a paladin of the sun god, and he is no pushover. The core in-game fact is Gelebor's equipment and stats. He wears the ancient Fulmer armour, one of the most beautiful and stat-dense light armour sets in the game, though unobtainable for the player without killing him or using glitches, just mods. But it's his magic that surprises. Gelebor wields powerful sun magic, spells that are specifically designed to nuke the undead. He is a walking holy hand grenade. In the few instances where he fights alongside you, he melts vampires and Fulmer alike. He is a sleeper build because he has survived for thousands of years in one of the most hostile environments in Tamriel. The Forgotten Vale is crawling with high-level Falmer warmongers and 2 legendary dragons, Naslarum and Voslarum. Gelebor has held his ground alone. He isn't just a priest. He is a one-man army keeping the sanctity of the shrine. The obscure lore tidbit is the implication of his survival. How has he lived this long? Snow elves have long lifespans, but thousands of years. It suggests that his connection to Ariel, Akatosh, grants him a form of divine immortality similar to the Tribunal or high-level wizards. He is sustained by his purpose. He is a living fossil, a window into the Merethic era. Community debate swirls around his future. Is he truly the last? He hints that there may be other enclaves of snow elves hidden elsewhere. But for now, he is the lonely sentinel. Fans wish he could be a permanent follower, as his dialogue is profound and his power is undeniable. He represents a lost civilization, standing tall and proud amidst the ruins. He is the sleeper who reminds us that endurance is a form of strength. He didn't hide, he just outlasted the apocalypse of his race. From the sun-drenched vale, we plunge into the purple gloom of the Soul Cairn. This is a plane of oblivion where trapped souls wander in eternal misery. It is the dumping ground for the ideal masters, and in this hellscape, trapped behind a barrier, is a mother who is far scarier than her daughter. Valerica, Serana's mother. We spend most of the Dawnguard DLC hanging out with Serana, who is a powerful vampire in her own right. But Valerica is the source. She is the wife of Lord Harkon, a pure-blooded daughter of Coldharbour. She fled to the Soul Cairn to hide an Elder Scroll from her husband. Think about that. She voluntarily entered a realm of eternal entrapment and carved out a fortress for herself. The core in-game fact is Valerica's mastery of necromancy. In the boss fight against the dragon Durnavir, Valerica joins you. And she goes hard. She summons Mistmen and Wrathmen, unique Soul Cairn undead that are tanky and hit hard. She spams high-level drain life spells. She fights with a ferocity that eclipses Serana. She's a matriarch who has spent centuries in a prison dimension, fighting off the Keepers and the dragon, and she hasn't lost her edge. She's a sleeper build because the narrative frames her as a victim hiding from Harkon. I had to run to protect the scroll, she says. But she didn't run to a safe house. She ran to hell and set up a laboratory. She's an alchemist of the highest order, having created the portal to the cairn itself. Her study in the castle courtyard is a testament to her genius. The obscure lore tidbit is her relationship with Durnavir. The dragon was tasked by the Ideal Masters to watch her. But over time, they seem to have developed a strange, respectful stalemate. Durnavir couldn't kill her, or wasn't allowed to, and she couldn't kill him, so they just existed. Valerica is powerful enough to stalemate a dragon for an eternity. That is her power level. She is an immovable object. The community debate often focuses on her parenting. She locked her daughter in a crypt for hundreds of years. She fled to another dimension. She is, objectively, a terrible mother, but she is a magnificent survivor. Players argue whether she is better than Harkon. Harkon has the transformative power, but Valerica has the brains and the magical versatility. In a chess match of wizardry, Valerica likely wins. Leaving the Soul Cairn, and hopefully remembering to retrieve Valerica after Harkon dies, we return to the quirky madness of the Dark Brotherhood for one final chaotic entry. We have seen the old mage and the child vampire. Now we meet the fool, Cicero, the jester, the keeper of the Night Mother. He is annoying, he shrieks, he dances, he rhymes, he talks to a corpse in a box. Most players find him insufferable. When the option comes to kill him or spare him, many kill him just to stop the noise. Need to oil Mother, get all the hard-to-reach places. But Cicero is the ultimate sleeper build of the assassin class. The core in-game fact is that Cicero is a whirlwind of death. If you spare him and take him as a follower, you unlock one of the most aggressive and effective companions in the game. He has high stats in one-handed, sneak and light armor. But it's his animation set that sets him apart. He literally dances in combat. He performs unique kill moves. He is unpredictable. He will charge into a group of bandits laughing maniacally, stabbing with a speed that is terrifying to behold. He's not just a crazy person in a suit, he's a highly trained assassin who broke his mind on the job. The obscure lore tidbit comes from his journals, which you can find in the Sanctuary. They detail his descent into madness. He wasn't always a jester. He was a professional, cold-blooded killer. His final contract was to kill a jester. The kill broke him. He became the thing he killed. He adopted the persona. But the skills never left. The muscle memory of a master assassin is still there, beneath the giggles. He is the Joker of Skyrim, chaos incarnate, but with a deadly precision. Community debate is split down the middle. Team Kill Cicero versus Team Spare Cicero. Those who spare him swear by his combat prowess. He is essential, immortal, while a follower, meaning he can tank infinite damage. He has unique dialogue for almost every location in Skyrim. He is the most detailed follower in the vanilla game. He's a sleeper because he hides his competence behind a mask of incompetence. You think he's a fool, he thinks you're the punchline. Finally, we leave the guilds and the factions. We go to the cities where the final challenges await. One stands in silence, clad in ebony. The other runs in circles, clad in lies. Hold your horses, adventurers. I know. We got a little excited there, peering into the future, catching glimpses of the ebony warrior and the chaotic dance of Cicero. It's easy to get swept up in the legends of the endgame, but a true lore master knows that if you skip the middle chapters, you miss the meat of the story. We can't just fast travel to the finish line. There are sleepers we glossed over, threats we mentioned in passing but didn't truly dissect. To respect the chronicle and to ensure you survive long enough to actually meet that ebony warrior, we need to rewind the scroll. We need to step back from the cities and return to the wilds. We need to go back to the deep, sick earth of the Reach. So, let's reset our compass. We're going to Bethardam's, and we're going to talk, really talk, about the elf who eats magic for breakfast. We mentioned him briefly, the silent overseer of the afflicted, but Auchendor deserves more than a footnote. He deserves a warning label. Bethardam's is not just a dungeon, it is an ordeal. It is a sprawling subterranean city of brass and steam, carved deep into the mountains by the Dwemer and now infested with the worshippers of Periite. The Daedric Prince of Pestilence is often mocked as the weakest prince, the taskmaster of supervisors and natural order. But his champion, Auchendor, is living proof that Periite is not to be underestimated. You enter Bethardam's usually at the behest of Periite himself, who speaks to you through a hallucination-inducing incense burner. He tells you that Auchendor has gone rogue. He has betrayed the prince. This setup is crucial because it establishes Auchendor's power level immediately. He's a mortal who looked a Daedric prince in the eye and said, "No." And he got away with it. He has locked himself inside this massive ruin, gathered an army of vomiting cultists, and cut off contact with his god. The journey to reach him is a war of attrition. You fight through waves of afflicted, Bretons, Nords and Elves who have been blessed with a plague that allows them to projectile vomit toxic sludge. It's gross, it's disorienting, and it sets the tone for the final confrontation. By the time you reach the Arcanex, the deepest chamber of the ruin, you're likely low on potions. Your inventory is full of Dwemer scrap, and your patience is wearing thin. And there he is, Auchendor. He doesn't look like a rebel leader. He looks like a scholar. He wears standard mage robes, usually of a muted colour. He doesn't carry a massive warhammer or a Daedric artifact. He just stands there, amidst the spinning gears and the hissing steam. When you approach him, expecting a monologue about his grand vision or his defiance of Periite, you get nothing. Auchendor is completely silent. This brings us to the core in-game fact that makes him a nightmare, which we need to explore in the depth it demands. Auchendor has a natural 100% resistance to magic. In the previous leg of our journey we touched on this, but let's break down the math because it is the definition of a sleeper build. In Skyrim, there is a difference between magic resistance and spell absorption. Auchendor has a unique ability that functions as a total negation of elemental damage. If you are a pyromancer, and you hurl a dual-casted Incinerate spell at him, a spell that hits with the force of a tactical airstrike. Auchendor takes 0 damage. If you are a cryomancer and try to slow him down with an ice storm, he walks through it like it's a gentle breeze. If you're a shock mage hoping to drain his magicka, your lightning grounds out harmlessly on his skin. For a player who has spent 40 hours building the ultimate wizard, Auchendor is a hard counter. He invalidates your entire character sheet. He is the game's way of asking, what else do you have? But it's not just his defense, it's his offense. Auchendor is a master of teleportation. This isn't a spell the player can learn. It's a scripted ability usually reserved for high-level vampires or bosses like the Dragon Priest Morocke. Auchendor blinks across the battlefield. One moment he's in front of you, the next he is on a balcony 50 feet above, raining down ice storms. Then he's behind you, spraying the afflicted vomit spray, a unique shout-like ability that deals poison damage over time, bypassing armor. The fight becomes a chaotic game of whack-a-mole. You chase him up ramps, he teleports down. You jump down, he teleports up. All the while, he is silent. He doesn't grunt when hit. He doesn't taunt you. He fights with the cold, unfeeling efficiency of a Dwemer automaton, yet he is flesh and blood. This leads us to the obscure lore tidbit regarding his silence and his betrayal. Why did Auchendor betray Peryite, and why doesn't he speak? Peryite mentions that Auchendor forgot his place. The lore books found in the ruin, specifically the Journals of the Afflicted, suggest that Auchendor wasn't just leading a cult, he was trying to create a new society. He believed the Afflicted were the next step in evolution, a people hardened by disease to survive anything. His immunity to magic might not just be a gameplay mechanic, it might be the result of his exposure to Peryite's blessings. He has become so saturated with the essence of pestilence and natural order that the chaotic energies of magic simply cannot find purchase on him. He is grounded in a reality so dense that magic slides off. His silence could be interpreted as the final stage of the affliction, his vocal cords rotted away, or perhaps a vow of silence taken to focus purely on his task. He is a tragic figure, a man who sought to build a paradise for the sick, only to be put down by a mercenary, you, hired by a jealous god. The community debate around Auchendor is almost entirely focused on the frustration of the fight. Search any Skyrim forum for Auchendor and you will find threads titled, "How do I kill this guy?" or "Auchendor is impossible." He is a notorious run killer for pure mage challenges. The community has developed specific strategies just for him. Some players suggest summoning Dremora Lords, as summoned creatures deal physical damage which Auchendor cannot resist. Others suggest using the Marked for Death shout to degrade his armor rating and then bashing him with a shield. But the most interesting debate is about his loot. When you finally kill him, usually by resorting to hitting him with a rusty mace you found in a corner, you loot his body. He has the key to the elevator, thank the gods, some gold, and a book. But the real prize is what you get from Peryite afterwards, Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker is a Dwemer shield that creates a magical ward when you block. It is the perfect anti-mage tool. There is a poetic irony here. Auchendor, the mage killer, drops the item that turns you into a mage killer. It suggests that Spellbreaker might have been Auchendor's power source, or that he was attuned to it. By defeating him, you inherit his resistance. You become the new Auchendor. We also have to talk about the environment of the fight. The Arcanex is a beautiful, haunting arena. It has long sightlines, massive Dwemer pipes, and verticality. Auchendor uses this space better than almost any other AI in the game. He doesn't get stuck on geometry. He uses the teleports to flank you. It feels like a PvP match against a player who is using lag switches. Auchendor teaches us a valuable lesson about the sleeper build. Real power isn't about having the biggest health bar, though his is decent. It's about having a gimmick that breaks the rules. In a world where magic is the ultimate force, the man who ignores magic is king. He is a wood elf, a race usually associated with stealth and archery, who decided to become the ultimate tank. He defies stereotypes, he defies gods, and for a glorious, frustrating 20 minutes, he defies you. So, when you stand over his body, catching your breath, wiping the green sludge from your visor, take a moment to respect the silence. Auchendor didn't need to shout to be heard. He just needed to stand there and let your fireballs fizzle out against his chest. Now, having properly cleared the air and the vomit regarding our elven friend, we can proceed with a clear conscience. The list must be honoured, and the next name on our chronicle is another magic user, but one who operates on the other side of the law and the other side of reality. We leave the Dwemer ruins and head back to the swamps, to a wizard we mentioned in passing, but who demands a much closer inspection. We leave the metallic tang of the Dwemer ruins behind, shaking the dust of the afflicted from our cloaks, and head east. The landscape softens, but not in a comforting way. The ground turns spongy, the air grows thick with moisture, and the towering pines give way to twisted dead trees that claw at the grey sky like skeletal hands. We are entering Jarlmarch, the salt marsh of Skyrim. It is a place where the fog never really lifts, where the silence is broken only by the chittering of frostbite spiders and the distant moan of a bog that seems to be digesting the world around it. In the centre of this gloom sits Morthal. It is easily the most depressing town in the province. The Jarl is plagued by visions, the people are paranoid about monsters in the mist, and the economy seems to consist entirely of lumber and fear. It is the last place you would expect to find a master of the arcane arts. It is a place people go to disappear, and that is exactly why Falion is here. If you walk to the edge of the water, past the staring guards and the whispering locals, you find a house that looks like it's slowly sinking into the mud. Inside lives a Redguard wizard who, by all accounts, should be the archmage of the College of Winterhold, or perhaps an advisor to the Emperor himself. Instead, he is here, in the middle of nowhere, selling soul gems and teaching a little girl not to set herself on fire. We touched on Falion briefly before, in our haste to catalogue the world's threats, but to treat him as a mere footnote is a disservice to the magnitude of his power. Falion is arguably the most accomplished, knowledgeable, and dangerous mortal spellcaster you can meet in the vanilla game, outside of the ancient dragon priests. He is the definition of a sleeper build because he presents himself as a grumpy shopkeeper, while concealing a resume that reads like a forbidden tome of eldritch horror. The core in-game fact that anchors Falion's legend is his unique role as the only NPC in Skyrim capable of curing vampirism. Think about the implications of that. Vampirism in the Elder Scrolls lore isn't just a disease like rockjoint or ataxia, it is a condition of the soul. It is a direct pact, willing or unwilling, with Molag Bal, the Prince of Domination. To be a vampire is to have your soul marked for Coldharbour. The vigilance of Stendarr can't cure it. The priests of Archay can't cure it. Even the great masters of the college will just look at you with pity and tell you to stay away from the fire. But Falion? Falion looks at you, sees the hunger in your eyes, the pallor of your skin, and essentially says, "Yeah, I can fix that. Meet me in the swamp at dawn. Bring a black soul gem." He treats a Daedric curse involving one of the most powerful princes in Oblivion like a minor inconvenience, something akin to a cracked tooth that just needs a bit of extraction work. The ritual itself is terrifyingly casual. You stand in a stone circle in the freezing marsh fog. Falion doesn't pray to the divines for help. He doesn't beg for mercy. He speaks directly to the forces beyond the veil. He performs a soul exchange, trading the soul inside the black gem to the ideal masters, or perhaps Bal himself, in exchange for yours. He is brokering deals with entities that view mortals as cattle, and he is doing it with the confidence of a man buying an apple at the market. This ability alone places him in a tier of magical understanding that dwarfs almost everyone else. But it is his casual dialogue that reveals the true depth of the sleeper beneath the robes. This brings us to the obscure lore tidbit that sends shivers down the spines of lore heads. If you speak to Falion about his research, he drops a bombshell that changes our understanding of the timeline. He says, with zero fanfare, "I have met Daedra and Dwemer and everything in between." Daedra? Fine. Any competent conjurer can summon a Dremora or chat with a golden saint if they have the magicka. But Dwemer? The Dwemer, the Deep Elves, disappeared from the face of Nirn in the First Era, thousands of years ago, during the Battle of Red Mountain. They vanished instantly when Lord Kagrenak struck the heart of Lorcan. Since then, they have been the ultimate ghost story of Tamriel. No one has seen a living Dwemer in millennia, save for Yagrum Baegon in Morrowind, who was in another dimension when the disappearance happened. For Falion to claim he has met them implies one of two things, both of which are terrifying. Either Falion is thousands of years old, secretly extending his life through dark magic similar to Devaith Fear, or, and this is more likely given his specialization, he has physically travelled to the plains of Oblivion, or the outer realms where the Dwemer souls might have been displaced. He mentions walking the plains. He talks about realms that would snap a lesser man's mind like a dry twig. This isn't just, I read a book about it. This is, I went there, I saw the impossible, and I came back to Morthal to sell spell tomes. He is an interdimensional traveller disguised as a swamp hermit. He casually strolls through hell dimensions that the Dragonborn only visits during specific, world-ending quests, and he does it for research. The contrast between his cosmic experiences and his mundane surroundings is what makes him such a compelling character. The people of Morthal are afraid of him because they think he eats hearts or sacrifices babies. They're worried about petty, small-town evils. They have no idea that the man in the shack by the water has likely stared into the eyes of Hermaeus Mora's library or walked the ash wastes of the Deadlands. Their fear is so small compared to his reality. He tolerates them with the weary patience of a university professor forced to teach a kindergarten class. This leads to the community debate and fan theories surrounding his true alignment and purpose. Is Falion good? He cures the Dragonborn, yes. He protects his apprentice, Agni, from the harsh words of the town. He seems to genuinely care about teaching her, even if he is gruff. Concentrate, Agni, he barks, but it's the bark of a demanding coach, not a villain. But then there is the matter of the Black Soul gems. To cure vampirism, or to fuel his more potent spells, Falion requires black souls. These are the souls of sentient races, men and mer. To fill a black soul gem, a person must die. Falion sells empty black soul gems. He buys full ones. He is the primary vendor for the darkest commodity in the game. He is essentially an arms dealer for soul trafficking. Fans debate whether Falion is a pragmatist who believes the ends justify the means, or if he has become so detached from mortality through his planar travels that he no longer views a human life as sacred, merely as a battery. He operates on a blue and orange morality scale, totally orthogonal to good and evil. He is a scientist of the soul. If a bandit has to die to fuel a spell that saves a vampire, that is just efficient calculus to him. If you decide to test his sleeper build status in combat, perhaps you tire of his arrogance and draw your sword, you will find that his bark is backed up by significant bite. Falion is a master-level trainer in conjuration. In a fight, he doesn't just throw firebolts, he summons storm atronachs. He uses high-level lightning spells that drain your magicka and health simultaneously. He fights with the fluidity of someone who has had to defend himself against things far worse than a Nord with a steel axe. But the most unsettling thing about fighting Falion is that it feels wrong. It feels like you are destroying a library. You aren't just killing a man, you are burning a repository of knowledge that no one else in Skyrim possesses. When he dies, the secret of curing vampirism, mechanically speaking, dies with him. There are no notes left behind, no journals explaining the ritual. He kept it all in his head. There is also a theory that Falion is a former member of the Psijic Order who went rogue, or perhaps a student of the great Telvanni wizards who found Morrowind too political. His refusal to engage with the College of Winterhold. I left the college because they were too rigid, he says, supports this. The college has rules against necromancy and certain dark arts. Falion has no rules. He answers only to the physics of magic itself. As you stand in his shack, listening to the rain hammer against the rotting wood, watching him sweep the floor, you have to wonder, why Morthal? Why here? Perhaps it's because Morthal is a place where the veil is thin. The swamp is full of ghosts. The nearby Labyrinthian holds the staff of Magnus. The tomb of Movarth is just up the road. Morthal is a nexus of dark energy, and Falion is sitting right on top of it, feeding on the ambient magicka, conducting his experiments where the Jarl is too distracted to ask questions. He is the ultimate sleeper because he has realised that the best defence is not armour, or walls, or an army. It is obscurity. If you save the world, everyone watches you. If you live in a shack in a swamp, no one bothers you while you rewrite the laws of physics. He's hiding in plain sight, a nuclear reactor in a wooden box. So, the next time you visit Morthal, show some respect to the man in the black robes. Don't just buy your spell tome and run. Listen to him. He's seen things that would turn your hair white. And remember, he's the only one who can pull your soul out of Cold Harbour if you happen to get a little too thirsty. As we leave the fog of Morthal, our boots heavy with mud and our minds heavy with the implications of Falion's research, we head for drier ground. We return to the roads, to the life of the wanderer. But the roads of Skyrim are not just for merchants and soldiers, they are also for artists, and sometimes the artist is the most dangerous person on the highway. We are looking for a man with a lute, a man who sings of heroes but fights like a demon. We step out of the murky supernatural gloom of Morthal and back onto the open road. The air clears, smelling less of sulphur and swamp gas and more of pine resin and cold stone. The highways of Skyrim are the veins of the province, pumping trade, soldiers and misery from one hole to another. Travelling these roads on foot, without the convenience of fast travel, is a meditative experience. You hear the crunch of gravel under your boots, the distant howl of wolves, and the wind whistling through the crags. It's a lonely existence. Usually when you see a figure approaching on the road, your hand instinctively drifts to the hilt of your weapon. Is it a bandit? A thief? A Thalmor patrol looking to educate you on religious doctrine? You brace for a fight. But then you hear it. A strumming. A melody drifting on the breeze. The figure isn't holding a warhammer, he's holding a lute. He wears the standard studded armour of a traveller, a mix of leather and iron that says, "I'm practical," not "I'm rich." He walks with a jaunty step, seemingly unbothered by the civil war or the dragons circling overhead. This is Tolsgar the Wanderer, and if you mistake him for just another roadside attraction, you're making a painful error. Tolsgar represents a very specific archetype in fantasy that Skyrim generally fails to deliver on: the battle bard. Think about the other bards you meet. Sven in Riverwood lives with his mother and writes fake letters to sabotage his romantic rival. Mikael in Whiterun is a creep who harasses the local women and folds like a cheap napkin if you punch him once. The bards in the Blue Palace are soft, pampered courtiers. Even the Bard's College questline is mostly about fetching instruments and attending a festival where they burn a dummy. There is very little sword in their songs. Tolsgar is the exception. He is the apology for every other disappointing musician in the province. The core in-game fact that defines Tolsgar is his unique class configuration. While he's labelled as a bard, his combat AI and stat distribution are that of a high-level spellsword. This is a rare combination. Most spellswords are mercenaries or military officers. Tolsgar is a busker. If you interact with him peacefully, the experience is charmingly mundane. He introduces himself as a wandering minstrel. For a small fee, usually 25 gold, he will play you a song right there on the road. It's a surreal moment. You might be standing in the middle of a blizzard in the Pale, visibility near zero, frostbite setting in, and you hand this man a coin to play The Age of Aggression. And he does it. He stands there, lute in hand, belting out the verses while the snow piles up on his shoulders. It's one of those emergent gameplay moments that makes the world feel lived in. He isn't an NPC waiting for a quest trigger, he's a guy doing a job, but the sleeper build reveal comes when the music stops. Let's say a pack of wolves attacks during his performance, or a bandit highwayman jumps out from behind a rock, or maybe you, the player, decide to see what he's made of and slash him with a dagger. Most NPCs in this situation, farmers, merchants, other bards, will cower. They will enter the fear state, crouching down with their hands over their heads, screaming, "I yield," or "mercy." Tolsgar does not cower. Tolsgar drops the lute and raises his hands, and suddenly the air is crackling with ozone. He immediately casts an armour spell, oak flesh, stone flesh or iron flesh, depending on his level scaling. His skin hardens, glowing with the telltale shimmer of alteration magic. Then he switches to the offensive. Tolsgar is a dual caster. He doesn't just spray a little bit of novice fire, he hurls lightning bolts and ice spikes with the accuracy of a Thalmor Justiciar. He kites his enemies. He backs up, blasting them with destruction magic to whittle down their health, and if they get too close, he draws a weapon, usually a levelled sword or mace, and engages in melee with surprising proficiency. I have seen Tolsgar single-handedly wipe out a group of 3 bandits who made the mistake of interrupting his set. He didn't just survive, he dominated. He fried the archer with lightning, froze the melee fighter with frost to drain his stamina, and then finished off the leader with a mace to the face. And when the dust settled, he sheathed his weapon, pulled out his lute, and went back to walking. "Thank you, tips are appreciated," his demeanour seems to say, standing over the smoking corpses of his critics. The obscure lore tidbit regarding Tolsgar connects him to the Bard class of previous Elder Scrolls games. In Morrowind and Oblivion, the Bard was a legitimate custom class choice that blended the skills of the thief and the mage. They were jacks of all trades. They had speechcraft to talk their way out of trouble, alchemy to brew potions, illusion to charm or calm enemies, and enough blade skill to defend themselves. They were adventurers, spies, and diplomats. In Skyrim, the class system was removed in favour of the learn-by-doing system, and the bard identity was largely stripped of its combat utility. Tolsgar feels like a developer's nod to that lost heritage. He is a callback to the days when a bard was a dangerous person to cross. His existence implies that there is a school of bardic arts out there that isn't just about poetry recitation, a school that teaches you how to project your voice to sing and how to project fire to kill. This leads to the prevailing community debate and fan theory. Is Tolsgar actually a spy? Think about it. He wanders the roads of Skyrim freely. He crosses hold borders without being stopped by guards. He visits taverns, listens to gossip, and performs for jarls and peasants alike. He is the ultimate grey man. No one pays attention to the bard. They speak freely around him. If you were the Emperor, or General Tullius, or even Ulfric, Stormcloak, wouldn't you want eyes on the road? Tolsgar's combat proficiency suggests military training. You don't learn to dual-cast Stoneflesh and Lightning Bolt by strumming a lute at the Bard's College. That is battle mage training. That is Legion auxiliary training. The theory posits that Tolsgar is a retired or active agent, perhaps a blade in hiding, or a Penetus Oculatus operative, using the wandering minstrel persona as deep cover. He patrols the roads not for tips, but to monitor the movement of troops, dragons, and the Dragonborn. It explains why he is so robust. It explains why he is always everywhere. You see him in the Rift. Days later, you see him in the Reach. He is covering ground with a purpose. The community also has a hilarious love-hate relationship with his timing. Because Tolsgar is a random encounter, he doesn't care about narrative pacing. There are countless clips online of players engaging in epic life-or-death battles with ancient dragons. The sky is burning, the music is swelling, the player is chugging potions, and suddenly, Tolsgar strolls into the frame. Would you like to hear a song? He is the ultimate interrupter. Sometimes he gets roasted by the dragon immediately, but other times he becomes the MVP of the fight. He distracts the dragon. He shoots lightning at it while it's flying. He inadvertently saves the Dragonborn's life by acting as a decoy. There is a specific joy in fighting a dragon alongside a bard. It feels like a scene from a movie that is taking itself too seriously, only to be crashed by a musical comedy number. But Tolsgar also serves as a warning about the levelling world. He scales with the player to a certain point, usually capping around level 25-30 depending on patches or versions, though some mods uncap him. In the mid-game, he is a formidable ally or enemy. If you decide to play as a villain, a bandit, or a murderer, and you attack Tolsgar, you might find yourself reloading a save. He has no yield threshold for the player. If you aggro him, he fights to the death, and because he uses shock magic, he drains your magicka. For a mage player, fighting Tolsgar is a nightmare because he strips you of your ability to cast back. He is a mage killer bard. There is a melancholy to him as well. He is always alone. He has no followers, no home that we see. He sleeps in bedrolls by the side of the road. He lives for the road and the song. In a way, he is the closest mirror to the Dragonborn. We are also homeless wanderers, solving problems with violence, moving from town to town. Tolsgar is just the version of us that chose a lute instead of a shout. He reminds us that not every hero is the protagonist. Some are just guys trying to make a living, who happen to be able to incinerate you if you don't tip. So the next time you see him, don't just walk past. Stop. Pay the 25 gold. Listen to the Dragonborn comes. It's a nice moment of peace. And then, watch him walk away. Hand resting near his sword, eyes scanning the horizon for the next threat. He's got it handled. Leaving the musical warrior to his patrol, we turn our eyes back to the shadows. We have explored the open road, but now we must return to the enclosed claustrophobic darkness of the sanctuary. We have discussed the child who bites and the fool who dances, but we skipped over the one member of the Dark Brotherhood who embodies the sleeper build, not through youth or madness, but through sheer, unadulterated, curmudgeonly rage. We are going back to the pine forest. We are going to knock on the black door again. And we are going to talk to the old man who thinks stealth is for cowards. Festus Crex. He is easy to dismiss. When you first meet the Brotherhood family, they are a colourful bunch. You have the werewolf, the lizard, the vampire child, Festus is just an old guy in robes. He looks like a librarian who got lost. He spends his time stirring a cauldron and grumbling about how the Brotherhood has lost its way. He longs for the days when they followed the 5 tenets strictly, yet paradoxically he hates the subtle approach. The young ones these days, he seems to say, sneaking around with daggers. Back in my day we just blew up the whole house. Festus is the sleeper build because he is the glass cannon of the guild. He is the artillery. We step back through the black door, whispering the password, "Silence, my brother," and descend into the cool, damp air of the Falkreath Sanctuary. The fire crackles in the central pit, casting long, dancing shadows against the stone walls. The family is all here. Astrid is plotting, Arnbjorn is sharpening his axe, and Babette is likely telling a gruesome story to her spider. But in the corner, near the alchemy lab, stands a figure who looks like he wandered into the wrong meeting. He is elderly, balding, and wears the Brotherhood's shrouded robes with the awkward fit of someone who prefers a comfortable armchair to a stealth suit. He has a permanent scowl etched into his face, the kind that comes from decades of disappointment in the youth of today. This is Festus Krex, and if you judge him by his wrinkles and his cane-wielding posture, you are making the last mistake of your life. Festus is the sleeper build of the magical variety. In a guild obsessed with silence, shadows, and the subtle blade, Festus is a walking explosion. He is the antithesis of the assassin archetype, yet he is one of their most effective killers. He represents the loud option. He is the guy you call when you don't care if the neighbour's here, as long as the target ceases to exist in a spectacular fashion. The core in-game fact that defines Festus is his absolute mastery of destruction magic, specifically the volatile art of pyromancy. When you first speak to him, he doesn't greet you with the mystical reverence of the Night Mother or the professional courtesy of Astrid. He greets you with annoyance. He asks if you're the new recruit, and then immediately launches into a critique of your appearance. "You look like you prefer a blade," he might say, with a tone that suggests using a sword is as primitive as eating with your hands. He then recounts his favourite contract. It wasn't a silent throat slit in the night. It was the Alika defection. A Redguard merchant had wronged a client. Festus didn't sneak into his house. He didn't poison his wine. He walked up to the man and hit him with a spell so powerful it turned him inside out. It was messy, Festus chuckles, but effective. This isn't just flavour text. Mechanically, Festus is a powerhouse. If you choose the alternate path in the game, the Destroy the Dark Brotherhood quest where you kill the entire family, Festus is widely considered the most dangerous target in the room. Arnbjorn has a big axe, but you can block him. Visara is fast, but he's fragile. Festus spams fireballs. In the confined, narrow corridors of the sanctuary, fireball is a nightmare. It has an area of effect, AoE. You can't just dodge the projectile. If it hits the wall behind you, you still burn. Festus turns the sanctuary into an oven. He dual casts, staggering you, burning through your health bar before you can even close the distance. He is a glass cannon, yes. He goes down quickly once you hit him, but his damage output is terrifying. He is the embodiment of the DPS, damage per second roll, hiding in the body of a grandfather. The obscure lore tidbit regarding Festus sheds light on why he is so grumpy and so deadly. Before joining the Brotherhood, Festus was a scholar. He claims to have been a prodigy at the College of Winterhold. In fact, he was a teacher there, but he was fired. Why? Not for incompetence, not for sleeping with the students. He was fired for being too dangerous. He wrote a book on destruction magic that advocated for spells that were deemed too volatile for safe use. The college, despite its reputation for dangerous experiments, we all remember the Great Collapse, found Festus's methods to be too extreme. He felt stifled. He felt that magic was meant to be unleashed, not codified and safety-proofed. "They didn't appreciate my genius," he rants. So, he joined the Dark Brotherhood, not because he is a religious fanatic who worships Sithis. Festus is actually quite secular compared to the others. He doesn't care about the Night Mother or the tenets. He joined because the Brotherhood gave him a license to kill. They gave him targets and said, "Do whatever you want." For Festus, an assassination contract is just a field test for his latest spell. He's a mad scientist who found a way to get paid for his experiments. This background makes him a fascinating sleeper. He is an intellectual elite, a man who knows more about magical theory than most archmages, but he uses that intellect to blow people up for gold. He is overqualified for his job. He is like a nuclear physicist working as a hitman. The community debate and fan reception of Festus is surprisingly emotional. At first, most players find him annoying. He's the get-off-my-lawn guy. He constantly complains about the state of the Brotherhood, about how Astrid is running things, about how no one respects tradition, even though he breaks tradition by using loud magic. He seems like a bitter old man. But as you progress through the questline, he softens. He starts to respect you. He sees your competence. He becomes the grumpy uncle who secretly likes you best. He even gives you a unique spell or gear, depending on mods cut content discussions, or at least advice that saves your skin. And then comes the end. The death of Festus Crex is one of the most poignant moments in the Skyrim narrative. When the Penitus Oculatus attacks the sanctuary, you are forced to flee. You fight your way out, emerging into the exterior pine forest, and there, pinned to a tree, is Festus. He is dead. He has been turned into a pincushion. Dozens of arrows protrude from his chest and robes. It is a brutal, undignified end. But stop. Don't just run past him. Look at the ground. Surrounding Festus's body is a ring of scorched earth. The grass is turned to ash. There are bodies of Penitus Oculatus agents lying nearby, burned to a crisp. This environmental storytelling tells the true story of his final stand. Festus didn't die begging. He didn't die running. He stood his ground against an entire squad of elite Imperial agents. He unleashed hell. He likely took 10 or 20 of them with him before they could finally bring him down with arrows from a distance because they were too terrified to get close. He went out exactly as he lived, loud, fiery, and dangerous. The sleeper build here is the realization that his grumpiness was a mask for a warrior's spirit. He wasn't a frail old man complaining about the cold. He was a dragon in human skin who was just waiting for a reason to breathe fire one last time. In a way, Festus Crex is a critique of the stealth archer meta that plagues Skyrim players. We all end up creeping around with bows, terrified of being seen. Festus laughs at us. Festus walks into the room, casts a master-level incinerate and asks, "Who's next?" He reminds us that stealth is optional. Power is mandatory. The tragedy of Festus is that he was born in the wrong era. In the time of the Dragon Wars or the Oblivion Crisis, he would have been a hero, a battle mage holding the line against the hordes. In the Fourth Era, in a decaying brotherhood, he was just an old murderer. But for those few minutes outside the sanctuary, he was a god of fire. His death serves as a warning to the player. No matter how strong you are, numbers will eventually overwhelm you. Even the greatest sleeper build has a limit, but it also serves as an inspiration. If you have to go, make sure you leave a mark. Make sure they remember the fire. We leave the smoking ruins of the sanctuary behind us. The air is heavy with the smell of ozone and burnt pine. We have seen what happens when magic is used for death. But what happens when it is used for peace? What happens when the most powerful voice in the world belongs to a pacifist? We must ascend now. We must leave the petty squabbles of assassins and soldiers and climb the 7,000 steps. The wind grows colder, the air thinner. The wolves howl, but they sound distant, insignificant against the backdrop of the mountain. We are going to the throat of the world. We are going to meet the masters of the Thuum, and we are going to realize that the man who speaks for them is holding back a storm that could shatter the sky. We leave behind the scorched earth of the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary, the smell of burnt pine and ozone fading as we trade the shadows of the forest for the blinding white of the snow. We are ascending. The journey to our next sleeper build is a literal climb, a pilgrimage up the 7,000 steps to the throat of the world. The air grows thin here, sharp enough to cut your lungs, and the wind howls with a voice that sounds almost intelligent. We are going to High Hrothgar. It is a place of silence, of meditation, and of old men in grey robes who spend their days staring at the floor. To the average player, the greybeards are just quest dispensers. They are the exposition dump for the main story, the teachers who unlock your potential and then scold you for using it. They seem frail, ancient, and utterly detached from the physical threats of the world. They preach pacifism. They refuse to take sides in the civil war. They won't even lift a finger to stop Alduin until you force their hand. But the face of this order, Master Arngir, is perhaps the most deceptive entity in the entire province of Skyrim. Arngir is the only greybeard who speaks to you freely. When you first meet him, he acts as the translator. the bridge between the Dragonborn and the raw, destructive power of the other monks, Borri, Einarth and Wulfgar. He seems like a kindly, if somewhat stern, grandfather. He lectures you on the way of the voice. He talks about balance and worship. He looks like a strong breeze would knock him over. He wears simple robes, carries no weapon, and moves with the slow, deliberate shuffle of the elderly. Do not let the bathrobe fool you. Master Arngeir is a weapon of mass destruction who has chosen to keep the safety catch on. The core in-game fact that cements Arngeir's status as a sleeper build is his level. If you look at the game data, or use the console command to check his stats, you will see a number that defies all logic. Master Arngeir is level 150. Let's put that into perspective. The Ebony Warrior, the legendary challenger who only appears when you have conquered everything else, is level 80. Karsteig, the ghost giant king who can two-shot a Daedric-clad warrior, is level 90. Alduin, the World Eater, the literal god of destruction who is prophesied to eat reality, scales up to level 100. Arngeir is 50 levels higher than the god of destruction. He is, statistically, the most powerful humanoid NPC in the base game. His health pool is astronomical, his magicka is effectively infinite, but it is his offensive capabilities that are truly terrifying. Arngeir does not need a sword, he does not need a spell tome, he uses the Thuum, and unlike the Dragonborn who has to wait for cooldowns, staring at a greyed out compass bar while waiting for their throat to recover, Arngeir has 0 cooldowns. If you were to anger him, perhaps by attacking a greybeard for a prank, or using mods to force a combat scenario, you would witness a display of power that makes the Great War look like a tavern brawl. Arngeir can chaincast shouts, he can hit you with ice form to freeze you solid, then blast you with fire breath while you're helpless, and then follow up with unrelenting force to ragdoll your burning, frozen corpse off the side of the mountain. He can disarm you instantly. He acts like a player who has turned on God mode and is just messing around with the physics engine. He is the ultimate sleeper because his power is entirely invisible until he chooses to use it. He doesn't wear Daedric armor to advertise his strength. He wears cloth. He doesn't carry a staff of annihilation. He just folds his hands into his sleeves and politely asks you to stop shouting indoors. The obscure lore tidbit regarding Arngeir adds a fascinating layer of irony to his strength. While he is level 150, lore-wise, he is actually the weakest of the Greybeards. This sounds contradictory, but listen to the dialogue. Arngeir tells you that he is the only one who can speak to you because he has not yet mastered the voice, to the point where it becomes uncontrollable. The other 3, Borri, Einarth and Wulfgar, are so powerful, so attuned to the voice, that if they were to whisper hello, they would likely kill you. Their voices have become pure tonal architecture. They cannot speak without altering reality. Arngeir is the junior member, relatively speaking, which allows him to retain his human speech. So the game presents us with a terrifying hierarchy. If Arngeir, the weakest among them, is level 150 and can juggle dragons with his voice, how strong are the others? The game mechanics don't scale the others as high, they usually sit around level 100 or match the player, but narratively, Arngeir represents the floor of High Hrothgar's power, not the ceiling. He is the safety valve on a mountain composed of nuclear warheads. This leads to a fierce community debate that has raged since 2011. Is Arngeir a coward, or is he the ultimate stoic? Many players dislike Arngeir. They find his arrogance insufferable. When you come to him asking for help to learn Dragonren to save the world, he hesitates. He lectures you. He says the Dragonborn's desire to stop the apocalypse is just vanity. He refuses to help the Blades. He seems content to sit on his mountain and watch the world burn, claiming it's just the will of the universe. Players call him a traitor to humanity, a passive observer who hoards power while innocents die. But the sleeper build perspective reframes this. Arngeir isn't a coward. He's practicing extreme containment. Imagine you're a man who can level a city by clearing his throat. Imagine you know that if you get involved in a war, you won't just win it, you will end it by erasing the opposition from existence. The Greybeards know their history. They know that when the voice was used for war, by Jurgen Windcaller's armies, it led to disaster. They know that Tiber Septim used the voice to conquer Tamriel, and while it created an empire, it also brought blood and tyranny. Arngeir's refusal to fight is not because he is afraid of Alduin or the Thalmor, it is because he is afraid of himself. He knows that if the Greybeards march down that mountain, the world breaks. He's a level 150 entity living in a level 10 world. His pacifism is the only thing keeping the game balanced. He's the grown-up in a room full of children with sharp sticks, refusing to pull out his gun because he knows it would be unfair. There is a famous, unintentional mechanic, or perhaps a feature, that players sometimes encounter, often called the Greybeard Ping Pong. If you make the mistake of attacking the Greybeards during their meditation, the AI scripts for all 4 of them activate simultaneously. Because they have the ice form Shout, which freezes you, and Unrelenting Force, which pushes you, they can trap the player in a permanent loop. You get frozen, then you get shouted across the room. Before you can stand up, you get frozen again, then shouted again. It is a humiliating, hilarious, and terrifying experience. You, the Dragonborn, the hero of legend, the slayer of Alduin, are reduced to a hockey puck being slapped around a monastery by 4 old men in bathrobes. You cannot move, you cannot heal, you can only watch your character bounce off the stone walls until your health bar vanishes. It is the game's way of saying, "Sit down, kid, you're not ready." This interaction serves as a hidden boss fight that most players never see because they respect the monks. But for the chaotic few who try to murder the elderly, Arngeir and his brothers deliver the swiftest, most absolute beatdown in the Elder Scrolls series. There is also a subtle, melancholy aspect to Arngeir. He is the caretaker of Paarthurnax. He knows that the leader of their order is a dragon, the younger brother of Alduin. He knows the Blades want Paarthurnax dead. Arngeir stands as the shield between the past crimes of the dragons and the vengeance of the present. When he scolds you for listening to the Blades, it's personal. He is protecting his master, his friend, and the only being who truly understands the burden of the voice. Arngeir teaches us that in the world of Skyrim, the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest, looking at you, Nazim. The true power sits in silence. It sits on a mat meditating on the word Rotmulag, waiting for the universe to turn. Arngeir is a sleeper build because he has realised that the ultimate display of strength is the ability to do nothing, even when you have the power to do everything. He is the eye of the storm, and if you're smart, you will bow, learn your word of power and leave before the storm decides to move. But as we descend from the spiritual heights of High Hrothgar, leaving the wind and the wisdom behind, we must turn our attention to the dark places of the earth. We go from the highest peak to the deepest valley. We go from a man who protects a dragon to a man who hunts the undead. Our journey takes us to the Forgotten Vale, a hidden corner of the map introduced in the Dawnguard DLC. It is a place frozen in time, beautiful and deadly. And there, guarding the ruins of a lost civilization, stands a solitary figure who has survived an apocalypse that wiped out his entire race. He is the last of the Snow Elves, and he shines with the light of the sun. We descend from the grey, wind-scoured peaks of the throat of the world, leaving the meditating monks to their silence, and embark on a journey that takes us off the map entirely. To find our next sleeper, we must travel to the northwestern edge of Skyrim, plunge into the pitch-black depths of Darkfall Cave, and emerge on the other side of the mountain range. We are entering the Forgotten Vale. If you have played the Dawnguard DLC, you know the feeling of stepping into this place for the first time. It is a breathtaking, alien landscape. Massive frozen waterfalls hang suspended in time. Bioluminescent flowers glow in the twilight. The sky is a strange, swirling canvas of auroras that seem too close to the earth. It is a lost world, preserved in a snow globe of isolation, and standing there, guarding the entrance to the great chantry of Auriel, is a figure who should not exist, Knight-Paladin Gelebor. When you first see him, your instinct is confusion. He looks like an elf, but not the haughty Altmer or the dark Dunmer. His skin is pale, almost translucent, like moonlight trapped in alabaster. He wears armour that looks like it was grown rather than forged, white, organic and intricate. He is a snow elf, a true snow elf. For centuries, the people of Skyrim have known the snow elves only as the Falmer, the hunched, blind, goblin-like monsters that infest the Dwemer ruins and poison adventurers. We thought they were all gone, twisted into beasts by the Dwemer's betrayal and their own devolution. Gelebor shatters that assumption simply by breathing. He is pristine. He is articulate. He is the last echo of a civilization that rivaled the gods. He appears to be a lonely priest, a custodian of a dead religion. He speaks with a soft, mournful voice. "I am the last," he says, or at least he believes he might be. He asks you to perform a pilgrimage. He asks for your help to reach the inner sanctum. He seems like a quest giver who needs the big, strong dragonborn to clear the path because he is too weary to do it himself. This is the deception. Gelebor is not just a priest, he is a paladin of the sun god, and he is a sleeper build of divine proportions. The core in-game fact that defines Gelebor's lethality is his mastery of sun magic. This is a school of restoration magic that is exceedingly rare in Skyrim. While most mages are throwing fire or frost, Gelebor throws concentrated sunlight. If you look at his combat data, Gelebor is equipped with the ancient Falmer armor, a set that boasts incredible stats for light armor, comparable to glass or dragon scale, but with a weightlessness that allows for fluid movement. But his weapon is the light itself. During the quest, Touching the Sky, Gelebor can become a temporary follower. Watch him fight. The Forgotten Vale is not a safe place. It is crawling with farmer warmongers, the elite of the corrupted snow elves, and Chorus reapers. These are enemies that can one-shot a high-level player. Gelebor tears through them. He casts spells like Sunfire and Vampire's Bane. These spells deal massive damage to the undead, and since the farmer are corrupted and the main enemies of the DLC are vampires, Gelebor is effectively a walking hard counter to the entire expansion. He doesn't just fight, he purges. When a vampire attacks, Gelebor doesn't panic. He raises his hand, and a pillar of holy light incinerates the target. He is a flashlight in a world of shadows, burning away anything that tries to touch him. He has survived alone in this valley for thousands of years, holding the line against an army of his own twisted kin. That is not the feat of a frail priest. That is the feat of a demigod. The obscure lore. Tidbit regarding Gelebor lies in the timeline of his existence. He is from the Merethic era. Let that sink in. The Merethic era is the time before the First Era. It is the time before the Nords fully conquered Skyrim, before the Dragon War ended, before the Dwemer disappeared. Gelebor is arguably one of the oldest living beings on Nirn, potentially older than Devaith Fia, older than the Septim Empire, older than the concept of Skyrim as we know it. How has he survived? Snow elves have long lifespans, but not this long. The implication, buried in the lore of the Chantry, is that his connection to Auriel, the elven aspect of Akatosh, the dragon god of time, has granted him a form of divine sustenance. He is a living saint. He drinks from the ewer of the god of time. He hasn't just aged well, he has been preserved. He is a living fossil, a window into a time when magic was wilder and the world was younger. His sleeper status is enhanced by his environment. He maintains the way shrines. These are magical teleportation devices that require a specific paragon to operate. Gelebor is the only one who knows how they work. He is a master of lost magitech. While the modern mages of Winterhold are struggling to cast a ward, Gelebor is maintaining a teleportation network that spans a mountain range. The community debate surrounding Gelebor is one of the most tragic and hopeful discussions in the fandom. It centres on his dialogue. I prefer to think that they are. He is referring to other uncorrupted snow elves. Is he truly the last? Or are there other hidden enclaves, perhaps in the mountains of High Rock or the frozen wastes of Atmora? Fans desperately want to believe he isn't alone. There are entire modding projects dedicated to the return of the snow elves, inspired solely by Gelebor's quiet dignity. But the debate also turns to his brother, Archcurate Virtha. The climax of Gelebor's quest is the revelation that his brother, the only other known survivor, has been a vampire all along and is responsible for the corruption of the Chantry. Gelebor asks you to kill him. Some players argue Gelebor should have done it himself. Is he weak for asking you? Or is he strong for recognizing that he couldn't bring himself to strike down his last living relative? The consensus leans towards the latter. Gelebor possesses the physical strength to kill Virtha. His sun magic would vaporize a vampire, but he lacks the heart to commit fratricide. He knows his limits. That is a strength in itself. There is also a fascinating discussion about his armor. The ancient farmer armor is one of the most coveted sets in the game. For years, players complained that you couldn't get it without using console commands or exploits. Eventually, updates allowed you to loot it from Virtha. But Gelebor's set remains unique. He wears it with a grace that the player can never replicate. On the Dragonborn, it looks like cool gear. On Gelebor, it looks like a uniform of office. It is a reminder that you are just a tourist in his history. Fighting alongside Gelebor offers a glimpse into what the Snow Elf civilization must have been like at its peak. Imagine an army of Gelebors, paladins clad in white, wielding the sun, fighting the Nords or the Dwemer. It reframes the history of Skyrim. We often think of the elves as the villains or the victims. Gelebor shows us they were warriors of light. He's a sleeper build because he stands still. He doesn't wander the map. He doesn't seek conquest. He stands at the railing of the balcony, looking out over the vale, watching the waterfalls frozen in time. He looks like a statue, but if you attack him, if you're foolish enough to think his pacifism is weakness, he will remind you why the Nords needed the voice to beat his people. He unleashes a storm of solar flares that makes you wish you were back in the dark. And then, once the quest is over, he stays. He doesn't come back to civilization. He remains in the Vale, the lonely guardian of a dead god. It is a solitary vigil that requires a mental fortitude we can barely comprehend. Leaving Gelebor to his eternal watch, we must travel even further away from the light. If the Forgotten Vale is a place of preserved beauty, our next destination is a place of preserved horror. We're going to a realm where the sun never shines, where the ground is made of dust and bones, and where the sky is a purple bruise. We're going to the Soul Cairn. And there, trapped behind a barrier, waiting for her husband to die, is a woman who makes the helpless damsel trope look ridiculous. She's a mother, a scientist, and a necromancer of such power that she carved out a laboratory in hell itself. Valerica. We bid farewell to the pristine, blinding snow of the Forgotten Vale and the blinding radiance of Gelebor. We are leaving the light behind. In fact, we are leaving Nirn behind. To find our next sleeper, we must step through a portal that feels less like a door and more like an open wound in the fabric of reality. We are going to the Soul Cairn. If you have played the Dawnguard DLC, you know the specific heavy dread of this place. The sky is a bruised purple, streaked with lightning that never seems to strike the ground. The earth is dead, literally. It is composed of grey dust and the skeletal remains of millions of entities. Massive, floating black structures loom in the distance, rotating slowly with a grinding sound that sets your teeth on edge. It is a prison dimension run by the Ideal Masters, entities who hoard souls like a dragon hoards gold. It is here, in this realm of eternal despair, that we find Valerica. She's Serana's mother. When we first hear about her, it is through the lens of Lord Harkon, the primary antagonist. He speaks of her with disdain, painting her as a traitor who stole his Elder Scrolls and fled. We expect to find a terrified woman hiding in a hole, praying that her husband never finds her. We expect a victim. When we finally reach the Boneyard, the massive fortress in the centre of the cairn, we see her standing behind a magical barrier. She looks every inch the vampire noblewoman, regal, composed, and slightly annoyed that you took so long. She wears the same vampire royal armour as Harkon, but she carries herself differently. Where Harkon is prowling and predatory, Valerica is static and observant. She's a scientist in a lab coat made of blood and leather. Do not mistake her isolation for weakness. Valerica is a sleeper build of the highest order because she has done the impossible. She has homesteaded in hell. The core in-game fact that establishes her power level is her mastery of necromancy, specifically the summoning of Soul Cairn entities. When the barrier finally drops and the dragon Durnavir attacks, Valerica doesn't stand back and let the Dragonborn handle it. She joins the fight. And she doesn't just use a dagger. She demonstrates a level of conjuration magic that is unique to her and the Soul Cairn. Valerica summons Mistmen and Wrathmen. These aren't your standard fragile skeletons or clumsy zombies. Wrathmen are high-level skeletal warriors wielding two-handed dragonbone or daedric weapons. They have massive health pools. Mistmen are floating spectres that blast frost magic. Valerica calls them into existence with a flick of her wrist. She commands the local wildlife of Oblivion. She effectively turns the Ideal Master's own jailers against them. Furthermore, she tanks hits from Durnavir. The dragon, who we learn is also an undead creature bound to the cairn, breathes necrotic fire and drains vitality. Valerica shrugs it off. She trades spells with the dragon and holds her ground. Mechanically, she is one of the tankiest mage followers in the game during this sequence. She heals herself. She summons tanks to distract the enemy, and she drains the life force of her opponents. She's a self-sustaining necromantic engine. The obscure lore tidbit regarding Valerica is her study. Take a look around her area in the boneyard. She hasn't just been sitting there twiddling her thumbs for hundreds or thousands of years. She built a fully functional alchemy lab. Where did she get the materials? The soul cairn has no shops. It has no mines. Valerica has been scavenging. She's been grinding soul husks, the gross fungal skins of lost souls, and combining them with whatever trace minerals she could scrape from the black masonry of the ruins. The fact that she can perform high-level alchemy in a vacuum suggests she's a genius. She figured out the chemical properties of a dimension that operates on alien physics, but the real law flex is the stalemate. Durnavir, the cursed dragon, was tasked by the Ideal Masters to watch her. He is their warden, but he couldn't kill her, and she couldn't kill him, permanently at least. They existed in a centuries-long deadlock. Valerica was so powerful and so entrenched in her magical defences that even a dragon backed by the Lords of the Realm gave up and just started patrolling the perimeter. She essentially fought the prison warden to a draw and then set up a living room in his guard tower. This leads to the heated community debate, Valerica versus Lord Harkon. Who is actually the stronger vampire? Harkon has the vampire lord form, he has the brute strength, the ability to fly, and the favour of Molag Bal. He is the physical powerhouse. But Valerica is the brains. She outsmarted him. She stole the Elder Scrolls right from under his nose. She created the portal to the Soul Cairn using a formula she devised herself, a portal Harkon couldn't replicate despite having a castle full of mages. Many fans argue that in a prepared fight, a wizard's duel, Valerica would wipe the floor with Harkon. Harkon is arrogant. He relies on his form. Valerica relies on preparation. She is the Batman of vampires. She knew she couldn't beat him in a fistfight, so she changed the battlefield entirely. She removed herself from the board. There is also the debate about her parenting, which adds a dark psychological layer to her character. Is she a good mother? She locked Serana in a stone sarcophagus for hundreds of years to protect her. To a mortal, this is horrific. Solitary confinement is torture. But Valerica plays the long game. To an immortal vampire, a few centuries of sleep is just a nap. She views time differently. She saw her daughter not as a person to be raised, but as a chess piece to be saved from being captured. It's cold, calculated, and terrifyingly logical. I did what I had to do, she says, and looking at her, standing amidst the piles of bones, you believe her. She is a woman who cut away her own empathy to ensure survival. Fighting alongside Valerica is a unique experience because of her dialogue. She's critical. She critiques your fighting style. She critiques Serana. She is the overbearing mother-in-law from hell, literally. But when she summons a Wrathman to take a fireball meant for you, you forgive her. She fights with the ferocity of someone who has had to defend her corner of the playground against demons for an eternity. When the quest ends and you kill Harkon, you have the option to return to the Soul Cairn and tell her it's safe to come home. This is where the sleeper build hits home. Valerica doesn't rush out. She's cautious. She asks for proof, and when she finally returns to Castle Volkihar, she doesn't try to take over. She goes to her study, she reclaims her garden, she plants her ingredients, she organises her books. It's a subtle flex. She doesn't need the throne, she doesn't need to be the lord of the castle. She knows that true power lies in knowledge, in alchemy, and in the ability to summon an army of undead giants whenever you feel threatened. She is the power behind the throne, the matriarch who survived the purging of her clan and the wrath of her husband. Valerica reminds us that survival is a stat too. In a game where we focus on damage output and armor rating, Valerica maxed out stubbornness. She waited out the apocalypse of her family in a box made of souls, and she emerged with her hair perfectly coiffed and her alchemy skill at 100. She is the sleeper who teaches us that sometimes the best way to win a war is to leave the battlefield, wait for everyone else to die, and then come back to claim the loot. As we leave Valerica to her gardening with plants that probably scream when you pick them, we must prepare for a shift in tone. We have dealt with the stoic, the tragic, and the calculated. Now we must deal with the chaotic. We are returning to the Dark Brotherhood one last time. We have seen the child and the old man. Now we must meet the jester. He is the most polarizing figure in the game. You either love him or you hate him, but if you underestimate him, you are dead. We are going to the Dawnstar Sanctuary. We are going to listen to the laughter in the dark. We are going to dance with Cicero. We leave the sterile, dusty silence of the Soulcairn and return to the land of the living, though our destination is no less morbid. We travel north to the frozen coastline of Dawnstar, where the wind cuts through armour like a knife, and the locals suffer from collective nightmares. Here, buried beneath the ice and stone, lies the secondary sanctuary of the Dark Brotherhood, and inside, dancing around the corpse of the Night Mother, is the most divisive character in Skyrim history, Cicero, the jester, the fool of hearts, the keeper. When you first meet him on the road near Whiterun, he's a figure of absurdity. He's dressed in the bright red and motley outfit of a court jester, stranded with a broken wagon wheel. He's frantic, speaking in rhymes and high-pitched giggles. Poor Cicero. Stuck! Stuck! He wails. He asks you to convince a nearby farmer to fix his wheel. Most players write him off as a weird, annoying NPC, a bit of comic relief in a grim world. Later, when he arrives at the Felcreath Sanctuary, the annoyance often turns to hatred. He is loud. He is disrespectful to Astrid. He spends hours talking to the mummified corpse of the Night Mother, oiling her skin and whispering secrets. He refers to himself in the third person. He shrieks with laughter at inappropriate moments. He is the embodiment of cringe to many players who want their assassins to be cool, silent professionals like Ezio Auditore. But this is the mask. This is the deception. Cicero is the ultimate sleeper build because he hides elite lethality behind the facade of a raving lunatic. The core in-game fact that makes Cicero a powerhouse is his status as a follower. If you choose to spare him during the quest The Cure for Madness, a choice the game heavily implies is the correct one according to the spectral assassin Lucian Lachance, Cicero becomes available as a companion, and he is a monster. Cicero has unique stats. He is one of the few followers with a high proficiency in one-handed sneak, light armour and archery, but it is his aggression level that sets him apart. Most followers are somewhat passive, they wait for you to be attacked. Cicero is a homing missile. If he detects an enemy, he engages, and he dances. This is not a figure of speech. Cicero has unique combat animations. When he fights with a dagger, his preferred weapon, he doesn't just slash, he twirls, he leaps, he performs elaborate execution moves that other NPCs simply don't have access to. He fights like a whirlwind of blades. He is unpredictable, erratic, and terrifyingly fast. Because he is marked as essential, immortal, while a follower, he can tank infinite damage. He will charge a dragon, get shouted across the map, stand up, laugh, and charge again. He is the Energizer Bunny of murder. The obscure lore tidbit regarding Cicero is found in his journals, specifically the final volume. These books detail his descent into madness, and they reveal that he wasn't always a jester. He was a highly trained professional assassin for the Bruma Sanctuary. He was methodical, he was cold. His final contract before becoming the Keeper was to kill a jester. The target was a man who laughed at everything, who found joy in the absurdity of life. Cicero stalked him for months, and something in the jester's madness broke Cicero's rigid professionalism. After the kill, Cicero didn't just walk away, he became the jester. He adopted the persona, the clothes, and the mannerisms. It was a psychotic break, yes, but it was also a form of evolution. He merged the discipline of the assassin with the chaos of the fool. This backstory recontextualizes his behaviour. He isn't just crazy, he is channeling a persona that allows him to cope with the utter darkness of his existence. He's the only member of the Brotherhood who truly respects the old ways. While Astrid is playing politics and trying to run a business, Cicero is the only one actually listening to the Night Mother. He is the fundamentalist in the room. The community debate around Cicero is fierce. Kill or spare is one of the most common threads on Skyrim forums. Those who kill him cite his annoyance factor. He never shuts up, they complain. He tried to kill Astrid. But those who spare him, the Team Cicero loyalists, argue that he is the only loyal member of the guild. Astrid betrayed the Dragonborn. Astrid betrayed the Tenets. Cicero was right all along. By sparing him, you gain the most detailed reactive follower in the base game. Cicero has unique dialogue for almost every city and dungeon. He hums tunes. He makes dark jokes about the scenery. He feels alive in a way that housecarls like Lydia do not. There is also a theory that Cicero is a Sheogorath worshipper, or at least touched by the mad god. His dialogue references madness constantly. But unlike the random chaos of Sheogorath, Cicero's madness is weaponized. It is focused entirely on the protection of the Night Mother. Fighting alongside Cicero is a chaotic joy. You're sneaking through a dungeon, tense and quiet, and suddenly Cicero screams, "Let's kill someone!" and sprints into a room full of Droga. It ruins your stealth, sure, but the sheer violence he unleashes usually makes up for it. He stabs with a glee that is infectious. He reminds you that you're playing a game about killing, and you might as well have fun with it. He's a sleeper build because he tricks you into underestimating him. You think he's a clown, you think he's a joke. But in the lore of the Elder Scrolls, the jester is often the most dangerous person in the court because he is the only one allowed to tell the truth. Cicero's truth is sharp, it is bloody, and it is usually lodged in someone's kidney. When you walk with Cicero, you're walking with a man who has looked into the abyss, seen it staring back, and decided to tickle it. He is the chaos factor that every good adventure needs, but now we must leave the laughter behind. We must leave the madness and the noise. We're heading to the endgame. We're heading to a confrontation that requires no jokes, no tricks, and no stealth. We're looking for a warrior who stands alone in the city, waiting for a challenge that may never come. We are looking for the Ebony Warrior. He is the final exam. He is the period at the end of the sentence. And he is the ultimate sleeper build because he doesn't look like a boss. He looks like just another adventurer. But he is the one thing the Dragonborn fears, an equal. We leave the manic giggling of Cicero fading into the snowy winds of Dawnstar. The laughter dies down, replaced by a heavy, solemn silence. We have travelled across the province, meeting witches in shacks, vampires in palaces, and elves in lost valleys. We have seen power hidden behind masks of innocence, age, and madness. But now we reach the end of the line. We reach the point where the game stops holding your hand and decides to bald it into a fist. We are entering the end game, and the avatar of this final challenge is not a dragon, nor a demon, nor a god. It is a man standing on the street corner of a major city checking his gauntlets, the Ebony Warrior. He appears only when you are ready, and by ready I mean when you have effectively conquered the world. You must be level 80. Think about the grind that requires. You have maxed out your smithing, your enchanting, your one-handed, your stealth. You have made skills legendary and relearned them. You have cleared every dungeon, shouted every shout, and looted every chest. You walk through Whiterun like a god among insects, and then you see him. He towers over the guards. He's clad from head to toe in ebony armour, the heavy black metal that looks like solidified night. He isn't attacking anyone. He isn't shouting. He is just waiting. "The time has come," he says when you approach. His voice is deep, calm, and resonant. It is the voice of a man who has forgotten what fear tastes like. This brings us to the core in-game fact. The Ebony Warrior is the game's final stat check. He is a mirror. He tells you his resume. I have slain giants and trolls. I have conquered the elements. I have delved into the darkest dungeons and defeated the deadliest beasts. There is no challenge left for me. Does that sound familiar? It should. He is describing your playthrough. He is the NPC version of a completionist player. He has done everything. He is bored. And because he has no quests left, no villains to slay, he seeks the only thing that still has meaning, a glorious death. He challenges you to a duel to the death at his last vigil, a camp high in the Velethi Mountains. He is the ultimate sleeper build because he stands in the market square like any other adventurer. But mechanically, he is a monster designed to punish you for your own hubris. He has 3,000 health. He has 50% resistance to fire, frost, and shock. He is immune to almost all forms of crowd control. You cannot ragdoll him with Fus Roda. You cannot paralyze him, usually. But the real kicker is his perks. He has the Reflect Blows perk. This means that every time you hit him with a melee weapon, there is a chance that the damage is reflected back at you. If you have crafted a game-breaking sword that deals 500 damage and you hit him, you might instantly kill yourself. He turns your own overpowered nature against you. He also uses the Thuum. He shouts unrelenting force to knock you off the mountain. He shouts disarm, to strip you of your weapons. He casts Command Daedra to steal your summons. He heals himself. He is a red guard, so he has adrenaline rush, giving him near infinite stamina. The duel at the last vigil is not a fight. It is a war of attrition. The setting is poetic. A lonely camp surrounded by ice and grey sky, far from the eyes of civilization. It is just you and him, no guards to help, no city walls to hide behind. just two demigods beating the pixels out of each other on a cliff edge. The obscure lore tidbit that has puzzled loremasters for a decade is his desire for Sovngarde. "Send me to Sovngarde," he requests. Here is the thing, he is a Redguard. Sovngarde is the Nordic afterlife, the hall of valour ruled by Shor, reserved for Nords who die bravely in battle. Redguards have their own afterlife, the far shores, which they reach by navigating the walkabout. For a Redguard to seek entrance to Sovngarde is religiously and culturally bizarre. It implies that he has either converted to the Nordic pantheon so completely that his soul has changed alignment, or that he knows something about the nature of Aetherius that we don't. Some speculate that his desire for Sovngarde validates the theory that belief shapes reality in the Elder Scrolls. If he believes he's a Nord at heart, if he lives the code of the Nord warrior, will Shor open the door? When he dies, he gasps, "At last, Sovngarde," giving us hope that he made it. But we never see him there, unless you use mods. He is a cultural anomaly, a warrior who transcended his race to become a universal archetype of the hero. This feeds into the massive fan theory that the Ebony Warrior is actually an avatar of Ebonarm. Raymond Ebonarm, or the Black Knight, is a deity of war who appeared in the lore of Daggerfall but was largely written out or ignored in later games. He is the god of the duel, the protector of warriors. He is described as wearing ebony armour and wielding a massive sword. Fans theorise that the Ebony Warrior is Ebonarm returning to the world in mortal guise to test the Dragonborn. He is a god coming down to check if the new protagonist is worthy. Another, perhaps more meta theory, is that he is the Nerevarine, the hero of Morrowind, or the champion of Cyrodiil before becoming Sheogorath. Or, even more meta, he represents the player from a previous save file. He is you. He is the ghost of your past gaming sessions, coming back to see if you've gotten any better. The fight with the Ebony Warrior is often short and brutal, or long and desperate, depending on your build. If you're a stealth archer, he just blocks your arrows or tanks them. If you're a mage, he resists your spells. If you're a warrior, he reflects your damage. You have to use every tool in your kit. Poisons, scrolls, shouts, kiting. You have to play perfectly. And when he finally falls kneeling in the snow, there is no grand cutscene, there is no explosion. He just thanks you. "At last," he sighs, and then he's gone. You loot his body, you take his armour, his sword, his shield. You are now the Ebony Warrior. You stand at his camp looking out over the mountains of Morrowind in the distance, and you realise the terrible truth he was trying to teach you. Being the strongest is lonely. There is nothing left to kill. You have become the ceiling of the world. The Ebony Warrior is the final sleeper because he represents the futility of power. He shows you that the reward for level 80 isn't a crown, it's a death wish. He is the reflection of the player's own boredom, a mirror held up to say, "We are done here." It is a melancholy victory. You leave his body on the mountain, a fitting burial for a king of combat, and you descend back into the world. But the world feels smaller now. The bandits seem slower, the dragons seem weaker. You have climbed the mountain, and you have seen the other side. But there is one more. One entity we have avoided. One character who has been with us since the beginning, weaving in and out of the narrative, breaking the fourth wall, and perhaps holding more power than the Ebony Warrior Alduin and the Daedra combined. He is not a warrior. He is a liar. He is a cat in a robe who runs across the water. We have saved the best for last. The ultimate sleeper build. The one who knows he is in a video game. We have stood on the mountain peak with the Greybeards, we have touched the sky with Gelebor, and we have buried the mightiest warrior in Tamriel in the snows of the Velothi Mountains. We have catalogued vampires, assassins, and gods. By all logic, the chronicle should end there, with the death of the Ebony Warrior. That is the dramatic peak. That is the curtain call. But Skyrim is not a world of logic. It is a world of glitches, of magic, and of stories that refuse to end. And so, as we walk away from that final duel, feeling the weight of our own power, we see a cloud of dust on the horizon. A figure is sprinting towards us. He's moving faster than a horse. He's wearing a hood that obscures his face and robes that have seen better days. He stops on a dime, looks you in the eye and says, "Maik is tired now. Go bother somebody else." This is Maik the liar, and he is the final ultimate sleeper build. Not because he can kill you, he can't, not because he rules a faction, he doesn't, but because he is the only entity in the entire Elder Scrolls universe who knows, with absolute certainty, that he is in a video game. We tend to dismiss Mike. He is an Easter egg. He is a recurring joke that Bethesda puts in every game, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, even the Elder Scrolls Online, to poke fun at themselves. He comments on features that were removed or changed. He makes excuses for technical limitations. He is the court jester of the developers. But let's look at him from an in-universe Watsonian perspective. If you strip away the Easter egg label and treat him as a real part of the world, Mike becomes terrifyingly powerful. The core in-game fact is his invulnerability and his speed. Mike the Liar is marked as essential. You cannot kill him. You can shout at him, stab him, drop a mountain on him, and he will just take a knee, catch his breath, and get back up. He is immortal. But unlike the Jarls or quest givers who are essential for narrative reasons, Mike serves no quest. He has no purpose in the script. He is essential simply because the universe refuses to let him die. And his speed? If you have ever tried to follow him, you know the struggle. Mike has his speed stats maxed out. He runs across the province at a pace that breaks the immersion of the game. He doesn't use roads. He cuts across geometry. He swims like a torpedo. He is a Khajiit who has achieved physical perfection solely for the purpose of running away from you. But the true sleeper nature comes from his dialogue. Mike is a sleeper agent of the fourth wall. He says things like, "Mike saw a mud crab the other day. Horrible creatures. I steered clear of them." This is a reference to the aggressive mud crabs and the conversation mechanics of Oblivion. He says, "Some people want special weapons. Mike prefers to just use his claws." A reference to the removal of the hand-to-hand skill tree in Skyrim. He says, "Dragons were never gone. They were just invisible and very, very quiet." A commentary on the retcon of dragons returning. To the NPCs of Skyrim, to Anise, to Arngeir, to General Tullius, Mike must sound like a lunatic. He is speaking nonsense. But to you, the Dragonborn, the player, he is speaking the absolute truth. He is the only character who speaks your language. He knows about the multiplayer that doesn't exist. Mike prefers to adventure alone. Others just get in the way. He knows about the shout cooldowns. Mike does not understand what is so special about shouting. Mike can shout whenever he wants. This brings us to the obscure lore tidbit regarding his lineage. In Skyrim, if you ask him about his appearances in previous games, which take place hundreds of years apart, he says, "Mike's father was also called Maik, as was Mike's father's father. At least that is what his father said." This is the Liar's cover story. It suggests a family business of meta-commentary. But look at the evidence. The voice is always similar. The personality is identical. The knowledge is cumulative. The more likely lore reality is that Mike is a singular transtemporal entity. He's an avatar. He's a being that exists outside the constraints of time, manifesting in every era to critique the architecture of reality. He is the constant. Empires fall, the Septim dynasty ends, the Red Mountain erupts, Alduin returns, and Mike is still there, complaining about the lack of calipers. The fan theory surrounding Mike goes deep into the metaphysics of the Elder Scrolls, specifically the concept of Chim. Chium, pronounced Kim, is the state of being where a mortal realizes they are a figment of the Godhead's dream, the universe, but has the ego to assert their own existence anyway. They realize, "I do not exist, I am just a dream." But they counter with, "I exist because I say I do." Those who fail this test zero sum and vanish from existence. Those who pass achieve Chim and can manipulate reality, like Tiber Septim or Vivek. The theory posits that Mike has achieved a form of Chim. He knows he is in a game. He knows he's a collection of code and scripts. He sees the edges of the world, but instead of going mad or vanishing, he decides to mock it. He's so powerful that he can look at the developers, the Godhead, and critique their design choices. Comparing him to the other sleepers we've met, the Ebony Warrior has conquered the game's challenges, but he is still trapped in the game. He wants to go to Sovngarde. He accepts the law. Mike rejects the law. Mike knows that Sovngarde is just a cell name in the creation kit. Anise hides her magic. Mike hides his awareness. Cicero dances for the Night Mother. Mike dances for the player. He is the ultimate sleeper build because he cannot be defeated. You can't outstat him because he doesn't play by stats. You can't outsmart him because he has read the patch notes. He is the observer. He is the reminder that no matter how immersed you get, No matter how seriously you take the Civil War or the return of the dragons, there is a cat in a robe laughing at the texture resolution of the snow. There is a strange comfort in Maik. In a world of high stakes, world eaters, vampires blotting out the sun, civil wars tearing families apart, Maik is just vibing. He's running from Riften to Solitude just to see if he can. He's looking for calipers he will never find. He represents the pure joy of the game itself, stripped of narrative obligation. He is the player character who finished the main quest eons ago and is now just messing around. He is us, reflected back. And so, we end our list not with a bang, not with a shout, but with a shrug and a lie. We have seen the grandmother who is a witch, the child who is a vampire, the bard who is a battle mage, the monk who is a nuke, the prince who is a statue, and finally, the cat who is a critic. They are the sleepers, the ones who remind us that in Skyrim nothing is what it seems. Every NPC has a story, every mechanic has a loophole, and every shadow might be hiding a monster or a friend, or just a Khajiit with a very strong opinion about horses. Maik is done talking, and so are we. The fire has burned down to embers now, friends. The orange glow is fading, replaced by the soft silver light of Massa and Secunda, filtering through the trees. The wind that howled around High Hrothgar has softened to a gentle breeze, rustling the leaves of the aspen trees in the rift. We have travelled a long road together tonight. We've walked the cold cobblestones of Solitude and the dusty paths of the Soul Cairn. We've looked into the eyes of killers and saints, monsters and mothers. It's been a heavy journey, filled with the tension of the unknown and the thrill of the reveal. But now the danger is past. The Ebony warrior is at rest. The old orc has found his peace, and Maik is somewhere out there, running under the stars, safe in his own immortality. You can let your guard down now. There are no more surprise attacks, no more red dots on the compass. The world of Skyrim, with all its chaos and its hidden threats, is pausing for breath. The dragons are sleeping on their mountaintops. The Draugr are silent in their crypts. Even the bandits have put away their bows for the night. You are safe here, by the fire, the story is told. The scroll is rolled up and put away. The only thing left is the sound of the night, the warmth of the blankets, and the heavy, comfortable weight of sleep pulling at your eyes. Let the images of the snow elves and the jesters fade into the mist. They will be there when you wake up, if you ever choose to visit them again. But for now, they are just dreams. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. The adventure is over. Sweet dreams.